Hello friends, this is Fictional Vortex. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie part 1 on what if Naruto was the spirit of fire and had the ability of mold chakra. The result of the Kyuubi's sealing destroyed Naruto's ability to mold chakra. However, the sealing also caused Naruto's Furyoku, spiritual energy, to manifest. During a beating under the hands of Konoha's villagers, thereby manifesting, for the first time, his guardian spirit, the spirit of fire. Behold as the line of shaman once again grace the earth. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. A depressed Naruto walked out of Ichiraku Ramen, making his way home without his usual cheerful air. He was enrolled a week ago in the shinobi program at the academy due to his drive to become Hokage and gain the respect of the villagers. However, that goal was crushed when the teachers discovered, to their hidden glee, that he couldn't mold chakra. The Hokage, upon hearing this, immediately took Naruto to the hospital for a thorough checkup. Kuroto, one of the few doctors in the hospital who didn't hate Naruto, gave him a complete medical examination to find out what the problem was and cure it immediately. It was an hour later that they discovered that Naruto could not become a shinobi due to his inability to use chakra. Of course, Naruto fainted immediately when he heard that, totally missing the conversation between the Sandaime and Kuroto. It would seem that the seal holding the Kyuubi had a side effect that none of them were able to expect. The seal, which was already a part of Naruto, permanently sealed off his ability to mold chakra. Sure, the boy had spiritual and physical energy in spades due to his status as a Jinchuriki, but the seal made it possible for the boy to combine them to form chakra that was a staple for any shinobi. The Sandaime was given two options. 1. Undo the seal for Naruto to mold chakra again, give or take a few years for his coils to adapt, but would result in releasing the Kyuubi that would result in Konoha's destruction. 2. Deny Naruto the ability to use chakra to keep the Kyuubi contained, thus, making sure that Konoha continues to thrive. The Sandaime Hokage, with the heavy heart, chose the lesser of two evils, keeping the seal intact and stopping Naruto from ever becoming a shinobi, shattering his lifelong dream to become the Hokage. When Naruto woke up, the Sandaime took the depressed boy to Ichiraku Ramen to get the boy to cheer up. To their shock and amazement, Naruto wasn't able to finish a bowl of his favorite ramen before asking for leave to go home. Naruto walked the streets of Konoha in a gait that many would describe as zombie-like. The blonde, due to his extreme bout of depression, didn't notice the mob forming behind him, eyeing him as if he was a piece of meat. A bloody and broken Uzumaki Naruto lay unmoving in one of the hidden alleys in Konoha, surrounded by a mob composed of both civilians and shinobi. They spent half an hour tearing into the boy, thinking that it was their right to make him suffer, being the Kyuubi's container, in their minds, hurting Naruto was like hurting the monster he contained. Naruto, due to his depression, didn't even shout as the sharp weapons cut his body up, he didn't scream as his bones broke. He didn't yell as blows upon blows were rained down on him. Some of the mob stopped when they noticed the boy, silent acceptance, unnerved at the fact that a 5-year-old boy didn't even notice their actions. Unknown to them, something was happening inside the boy's mind, or to be more precise, his soul. Naruto stood blankly as he stared at the darkness creeping up on him. When the mob started cutting him up, he didn't know how he did it. But he went into a trance and entered his mind. He found himself in a sewer, ankle deep in water. He noticed a loud roar echoing from the distance, but he ignored it. Instead, he focused on the darkness creeping up on him, slowly, ever so slowly, eating up the sewer that he didn't know was a representation of his mind and soul. The shadow eating his mind and soul was his approaching death. I wish everything would end. Naruto whispered to himself. I don't know why I kept holding on to life anymore. Is that your wish, Uzumaki Naruto? Who's there? Naruto asked, not even startled when he heard the voice speak to him. The voice that was coming from everywhere around him. He didn't notice the shadow slow down its advance as if time is being slowed down. Do you really wish to die? Yes, was the blonde's answer, a smile on his face before turning into longing. I will meet my parents if I do. Did your failure to become a shinobi really affected you that much? So much that you changed immediately from wanting to live life to wanting death's embrace. What else is there? Was Naruto's question. What if you were more, Uzumaki Naruto? What if being a shinobi was not your path? What if you were destined for something greater? Something more profound than being a mercenary? What do you mean? Naruto asked the voice, despite his intentions of leaving this world for the afterlife. A hint of interest laced his tone. I will make you an offer, Uzumaki Naruto. If you wish to die, then I will not stop you. However, if you wish to hold on to life and start anew, dream of new goals, suffer old and new pains, I will bestow upon you a power that has long been dormant in the world. Power. Yes, a power that has been a part of humanity but no longer used. A power that is now a forgotten myth from a time long past. If you wish to live, then you will get this power, Uzumaki Naruto. You will become the first shaman of this generation. Naruto was silent as he pondered the voice's offer. Should he live, continue his existence despite the hate and torture he was subjected to? Should he take the offer and deny Hi's longing to see his parents again in the afterlife? As if these questions opened a floodgate in his mind, Naruto saw the faces of people who cared for him, people who loved him. The smiling and laughing face of the Sandaime Hokage. The cheerful and accepting faces of the Ichiraku Chuki and his daughter, Ayame. His Anbu guard wearing a dog mask telling him stories about shinobi missions. The faces of the merchants that visited the village every month that offered him food and a place to sleep. The funny duo who guards the large Konoha gate, playing with him if he was bored or lonely. He smiled as he remembered their faces, determination coursing through his body as he told the voice his decision. I will live. I will accept the power. I will do it for my precious people, Naruto declared in a voice that didn't belong to a 5-year-old, a declaration that only those who survived wars and devastation could say in determination. Live your life, Uzumaki Naruto. I will grant you the power of your ancestors, the powers of your long-forgotten family, the most powerful shamans that graced the world. Their powers are now yours to use as you see fit, for good or for ill. Become a shaman that would make your family proud, Asakura Naruto. Naruto felt something unlock his mind, his body filling up with a powerful energy that encompassed his entire being. Darkness eating away at the sewer disappeared as the walls turned into particles of light. Asakura Naruto floated amidst a sea of white energy that caressed him, soothed him, empowered him. He felt knowledge enter his mind. History of his forgotten ancestors, their abilities and strength, their failures and weakness, of ancient lore and techniques. All flowed into the boy who accepted his birthright. Who are you? Was Asakura Naruto's question as he wanted to know who the voice was, a lingering note of familiarity attached to it. My name is Asakura Hao, the Shaman King. Live on, my descendant, and show to the world that an Asakura shaman walks the earth again. Fight the good fight, live the good life, and most importantly, protect those who you deem precious while striking fear into the hearts of your enemies. Naruto opened his eyes as a pillar of concentrated Furyoku erupted around him, effectively pushing back the crowd as he slowly floated upright. Another burst caused his torn and bloody shirt to disintegrate, showing the mob the wounds healing at an alarming pace as his hair lengthened to reach his ankles. He floated serenely in front of the crowd, face serene as he gazed upon the fearful visage of his attackers. One of the shinobi in the mob couldn't help but shout. The demon, it's escaping, shouted the shinobi as he flipped through hand seals. Before launching a large fireball towards the floating Naruto, Naruto saw the attack coming as if it was in slow motion. He raised his hand towards the projectile as knowledge from his ancestors flooded his mind. Cho Senji Ryukatsu, Fumin Tonko. A barrier of pure Furyoku appeared in front of Naruto in a form of a shield that easily absorbed the fireball as if it was nothing. In essence, Fumin Tonko was an ability to read the flow of spirit, allowing the shaman to avoid spirit-based techniques or render them effective. However, the large amounts of Furyoku Naruto used solidified the technique into something akin to a shield, effectively protecting him from the attack. Everyone, let's attack together. Let's show the demon who's more powerful, shouted the leader of the mob, a fat civilian carrying a large butcher knife. His words dispelled the fear that gripped the crowd, resulting in crazed shouts causing them to attack all at once. Civilian threw their pawns at him while the shinobi in the crowd let loose a barrage of shurikens, kunais, and jutsus. Naruto smiled at Mob's desperation. His newly gained ability to read the hearts of people made him realize that they were fearful of him. Fear driving them forward, fear feeding their courage. But in Naruto's point of view, fear will lead to their deaths under his hands. Come, my guardian spirit, Naruto whispered as his Furyoku surged. A pillar of flame surrounded him before expanding outward, melting the metal weapons and sharp-cutting kitchen instruments while snuffing out the pitiful Kaiden jutsus from the shinobi. Also reducing the buildings and items around him into ash. The civilians who couldn't get away in time suffered the same fate while those who saw the attack coming were able to retreat to a distance that protected them from the searing flames' reach. The conflagration surrounding Naruto converged until it formed a gigantic humanoid form that was bigger than the Hokage Tower. The apparition of flames had long arms that almost reached down to the ground, ending in large claws that could easily skewer a full-size human with enough left for another. Its neck protruded out of the top of its hunched torso to make way for a head with two large appendages that many would describe as its ears. It had no nose or mouth, but the baleful green eyes stared down at the fearful mob as if passing judgment. Everyone, Naruto called the attention of what's left of the mob, a smile gracing his face that scared them. The newly awakened shaman felt spiritual signature coming at him at high speed. Recognizing two of them belonging to those precious to him. I would like to thank you for showing me your tender loving care. Thanks to you, I was reborn. No longer will be called as Uzumaki Naruto, the same Naruto who died when he found out that he could no longer be a shinobi or reach his dream as the Hokage of this village. What you see before you is the reborn Naruto, taking up the mantle of my ancestors, a shaman. From this day onward, I shall be known as Asakura Naruto. As if to drive his point home, the spirit of fire let out a roar so powerful it made the whole village tremble. When it was done, the powerful spirit raised its clawed hands towards the crowd as flames converged into a ball. Farewell, said Naruto, his smile never leaving his face as his guardian spirit let loose its attack that vaporized what was left of the crowd as well as the surrounding area, reducing some of the houses to ash and killing the ones inside. With its work done, the large spirit reached down and laid its hand on the ground, palms up. Smiling, Naruto took his place on the offered appendage before being lifted to his guardian's chest. Casually, Naruto jumped on its shoulder and sat down as the Sandaime and his trusted team of Anbu finally arrived at the scene. Naruto smiled at the man he considered his grandfather. Good evening, Hokage Jiji. Naruto greeted the Sandaime Hokage who gaped at the monstrosity in front of him, his grandson in all but blood on its shoulder, totally unafraid or affected by the scene of destruction around him. Naruto. The Sandaime stuttered out in disbelief. Who else, Jiji? Naruto joked before pointing at the Hokage Tower in the middle of the village. Shall we go to your office, Jiji? We need to talk. The Sandaime sighed before turning to the squad of Anbu behind him, most specifically, Dog, who he was sure was gaping at the sight of his surrogate brother sitting happily on the monstrosity's shoulder. Dog, order your squad to clean this mess up. I want a full report later. Clear. Hi, Hokage-sama. Dog stuttered before turning to his team to get started with his order. The Sandaime turned to Naruto and was about to tell the boy to follow him when the giant's hand lowered down in front of him. Come on up, Jiji. It's safe. My guardian spirit won't hurt you, Naruto told the Sandaime in encouragement. Deciding to trust his grandson, he stepped on the offered hand before he was raised to where Naruto was before jumping on the shoulder beside the smiling blonde. I suggest you hold on, Jiji, Naruto warned. What? Asked the Hokage before he shouted in surprise when he felt the large being float up into the air and flying towards the Hokage Tower. Despite the situation, he couldn't help but feel happy when he heard the carefree laughter that came out Naruto's mouth. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage of Konoha, took a large gulp of sake directly from the bottle before massaging his temple. Naruto just finished telling him about his rebirth, the voice that was his ancestor, his powers as a shaman, and the large guardian made of fire, ironically named the spirit of fire, standing guard outside the Hokage Tower. It was a good thing that he told Dog to tell the shinobi of Konoha that the large flame construct was friendly and not to be attacked unless provoked. They heeded the Sandaime's words since they had no intentions of facing such a beast. They weren't suicidal, thank you very much. The aged Ader watched as his surrogate grandson made a dozen shikigami out of leaves that he harvested from the tree outside the tower. The leaf was surrounded by an almost transparent bubble with a pair of eyes, hands, and legs. They were flying around Naruto as if they were playing, the blonde laughing at their antics. So, let me get this straight. You want to change your name to Asakura Naruto and start a family of shamans in the village, correct? The Sandaime asked his surrogate grandson. Yep, Naruto agreed happily as he tried to poke a shikigami before it danced out of the way. Since I can't become a shinobi, might as well start something different that only I can do right. Fine, that is acceptable. However, is this shaman of yours a bloodline? Naruto tilted his head to the side in confusion. The shikigami beside him doing the same. Bloodline. You remember the story I told you about the clans here in the village? Asked the Sandaime, to which Naruto nodded. They have unique abilities described as a bloodline. The Nara clan's bloodline is their ability to use shadow jutsus, the Hyuga's all-seeing Byakugan, the Inuzuka's affinity towards canines, and so on. The abilities are passed on to their sons and daughters, hence a bloodline. Ah, yes, you can definitely call it a bloodline. I'm quite sure that my kids will have the same powers as me. Granted, they have to be taught the basics and learn the techniques that come with it. But yes, it will be passed on. Naruto told the man before dismissing the shikigami who was annoying him as they tugged at his hair. The leaves fell to the floor as he dispersed the Furioku, giving life to the familiars with a thought. I take it you want your status as a shaman be known in the village. I think it would be hard to make an alibi about my guardian. Naruto deadpanned as he pointed at the window that showed his spirit guardian's face comically peering at them from outside. Speaking of which, is there a way for you to hide? It. The spirit of fire is quite happy for being out and about the physical world once again after thousands of years, but if you insist, said Naruto as he sent a mental command to his guardian, causing it to slowly shrink until it became a 2-foot version of itself. It floated into the office before situating itself on top of Naruto's head. Will this do? Yes, that will definitely do, said the aged leader in relief. He knew that the giant's presence was already causing a village-wide panic. Naruto nodded before noticing 2 spirits entering the room. They phased through the wall and stood beside the aged leader, looking at him expectantly. One of them pointed at himself and pointed at wall behind him. Naruto Folo wed the finger to see a picture of the Shodaime and Nadaime Hokage. Gigi, do you know that there are 2 dead people beside you? Naruto told aged leader, who looked at him in surprise. Can you describe them? Sarutobi asked immediately, not disbelieving the boy's words. After all, it was hard to deny something that happened already. Naruto didn't answer but pointed at the 2 pictures on the wall. Hashirama-sama and Tobirama-sama. The Sandaime breathed out. Are you sure they are here? Yeah, do you want to talk to them? How? Naruto walked over to Hashirama, who smiled at him. He raised his hand towards the Shodaime's spirit as it turned into a ball with a face. He channeled a bit of his Furioku and slammed the ball into his chest. Hyoi Gatai. A burst. A Furioku spread out of Naruto before he straightened from his slouch, his face no longer the serene expression that Naruto adopted after his rebirth. This new expression was someone who experienced war. A powerful shinobi with an aura to match. Suru, it's nice to talk to you again after all this years, said the possessed Naruto, the combined voice of the blonde and someone that Sarutobi definitely recognized. Hashirama-sensei. Sarutobi breathed out. How is this possible? As a shaman, Naruto has the ability to allow spirits to possess him as a medium, giving the spirit to interact with the world of the living for a limited period of time. The time I can possess him depends on his energy, but he can end the connection if he wanted. I see. How do you know these things, sensei? Sarutobi asked, unconscious, addressing the Shodaime as he used to when he was part of the man's genin team when the village was created. When I died, I became a part of the world of the dead, where spirits roam. Nothing is hidden from us, so we know about shamans and their abilities, explained the Shodaime. Naruto is quite a powerful shaman for his age. He will definitely become a powerful asset to this village if given a chance. Sarutobi chuckled. I always have high expectations of Naruto. Even after you found out that he can never be a shinobi due to his inability to use chakra? Asked the Shodaime, testing his former student's affection towards the boy he was possessing. Yes, I know that Naruto was depressed when he learned that he can never be a shinobi, but I know that the boy will pull through. He is a very talented lad and I know he will find a way to reach his dreams. Sarutobi said with a smile. In fact, I already came up with a plan to have some of my best shinobi teach him taijutsu. Even if he can't use chakra, he could still attain his dream one way or another. Thank you, Gigi, said Naruto as he momentarily took control of his connection with Hashirama before relinquishing it back to the spirit. So, sensei, what do you want to talk about? I know you have a reason for this intervention, asked the Sandaime. Since he knew how his sensei mind worked, he would never resort to this if he didn't have a reason. I do, said Hashirama as his face took a serious look. The village has fallen far, Suru. I don't blame you since you are already old and tired of the wars, and it took its toll on you when the Kyuubi attacked with your successor dying, forcing you to take the mantle of leadership again. However, as your sensei and predecessor, I ask that you fix the problem plaguing this village. Only you can fix it, and it is to Naruto's advantage that you do it as soon as possible. Problem? Sarutobi questioned. You have let the Konoha Council and the elders dictate your decision. When I created the village with Uchiha Madara, the job of the council is to help the Hokage manage the village as its advisors. They advise you, not control your decisions and actions. You are letting your age dictate your actions, Suru. It is time to show the council and elders who the leader is. Are you sure, sensei? Asked a doubtful Sarutobi, showing everyone that despite his experience and abilities, he was still a human underneath. I am sure, Suru. I know that you are Alred. Why thinking of assigning your student Jiraiya or Tsunade as your successor, but you need to fix this problem first. I have my full trust in your, Suru. I see, said the Sandaime before the fire of determination appeared in his eyes. I will do so at once, sensei. I will correct my mistakes and make you proud. I am already proud of you, Suru, said Hashirama as he smiled at his former student. I need to end this connection now. Despite being a powerful shaman, Naruto is still not used to his powers. He needs to train with them in order to adapt. Farewell, Sarutobi. We will speak again soon if there is need. With that, Hashirama exited Naruto's body before reforming once again. He stood behind his brother. Both bowed to him in respect before disappearing from the room to the afterlife. Naruto groaned and almost fell to the floor when the Sandaime's strong arms held him upright. He was led to a chair where he slumped down tiredly. Shodaime-sama was right. My body definitely needs to adapt to my abilities as a shaman. I'm so tired, Naruto managed to say before his eyes slid shut. I think I'll take a nap now, Gigi. The Sandaime could but chuckle when he heard his surrogate grandson snore. He looked at the guardian spirit on Naruto's lap. You're going to keep an eye on him, I take it? Sarutobi asked the boy's guardian, not expecting a reply. He was surprised when the spirit of fire nodded before studying Naruto's face. The Hokage nodded before calling on trusted Anbu. Dog. He called out as said Anbu materialize. In front of him in a puff of smoke and leaves. You called, Hokage-sama. Round up your team. I am calling an emergency council session in 1 hour. I want all the shinobi and civilian council, as well as the elders to attend. Is this about Naruto's newfound powers, Hokage-sama? That and it's fine time that I clean house. Sarutobi said with a glint in his eyes that made Dog gulp. Konoha changed overnight. The Konoha council was called into a meeting along with the elders. The Hokage was hit by a barrage of questions regarding Naruto, a guardian spirit, the death of the mob that tried to kill Naruto. And of course, the destruction caused by Naruto's rebirth. The Sandaime let the salvo continue until he flared his killing intent along with his chakra that practically shut everyone up. The shinobi in the council smirked when they saw the fire in the aged leader's eyes. The elders were nervous while the civilian council almost soiled their pants from the amount of malice the aged leader directed upon them. After their silence, the Hokage lit into them like the proverbial sleeping dragon that was just woken up from its eternal slumber. He reminded the council, especially the civilians, that they were just advisors. Of course, They put up quite a stink but shut their traps when the Hokage ordered his Anbu to throw them in prison for treason if they kept it up. The elders did the same but in a more dignified way but shut up when the Sandaime reminded Kaharu and Homura that they were expendable. A threat to removing them from their permission, and doing a total audit on their actions shut them up. Danzo, of course, was totally silent during the debacle since he knew that the Sandaime just did a complete 180. This wasn't the meek Hokage. They come to know after the Kyuubi attack. No, this was the Sandaime Hokage, the professor, the shinobi no kami who survived 2 great shinobi wars and came out triumphant. He kept his mouth shut, but became nervous when he saw the old monkey level him a look that screamed, "I know what you're hiding." He already made a point to clear his schedule since he knew his former teammate would have words with him soon enough. Now that's over and done with, let's get down to the second part of this meeting, announced Sarutobi as he opened the folder on his table. The folder contained a list of Naruto's abilities, simplified for some of the idiot council members to understand. I think many of you are curious about the sudden appearance of the spirit in the village. Everyone nodded, though it was Shikaku who started the question. Spirit? He asked with a raised eyebrow, causing the Sandaime to nod in affirmative. Yes, a spirit. The giant that you saw was actually a manifestation of Naruto's bloodline. It is called the Spirit of Fire and Naruto's guardian spirit. Are you sure that thing isn't the Kyuubi? Asked one of the idiot council members, recognizing the pink hair belonging to Haruno Sakuya, the leader of the merchants operating in Konoha. You do know that my penalty for mentioning the Biju and Naruto in the same sentence still stands, right? Rutobi asked rhetorically, causing the paling woman to realize her mistake. I won't have you killed since it is part of this discussion. However, I'll just remind you that the mention of Kyuubi and Naruto in a single sentence, no matter how indirect, outside these walls will rectify that oversight. Clear? See clear? Sakuya squeaked out, totally unnerved at the casual way the Sandaime mentioned her death. Good. To answer your question, the Spirit of Fire is not the Kyuubi, said the Sandaime to answer the woman's question. He turned to the Shinobi Council. I think you all know what the Kyuubi's presence feels like. Can you tell me if what you felt of Naruto's guardian when it appeared in the village? I don't feel any malice from Naruto's guardian, Hokage-sama, though I would like to point out that my hive is both in awe and excited of its presence, said Shibi in his usual monotone. Excited? Asked Sume in disbelief. Every dog in the compound was practically on sugar high when it appeared. Excited is definitely a mild term to describe it. All right. Sarutobi stopped the debate before it could form. He wanted to get this done as soon as possible, since he has a surrogate grandson to look after in his office. Shibi, please describe why your hive feels excited. Shibi was silent as he communicated with his hive. Ever so slowly, the stoic Isage turned to a look of awe and disbelief. It is amazing, Hokage-sama. According to my hive, Naruto's guardian is considered a deity, a power that is similar to that of a god. It is considered a part of nature, or to be more precise, an aspect of nature itself, an embodiment of fire, a living flame from nature itself. My hive told me that they are not afraid of it, in fact, they are foul ling head over heels to worship the being. God, don't you think that's a bit far-fetched? Asked Inoichi, disbelief lacing his tone. I am only relaying what my hive tells me, Inoichi-san. I said something similar to a god, not an actual one, Shibi said a bit defensively. Sarutobi looked at Hiashi, who had a thoughtful look on his face. Anything you would like to share to the council, Hiashi? He asked the stoic Hyuga clan head. I observed Naruto and his guardian as the three of you flew to the tower, Hokage-sama. I can easily say that no chakra was used whatsoever between the two. Hiashi replied. He saw the questioning looks directed at him by his colleagues, causing him to explain further. The Byakugan allows me to see both chakra and a person's chakra network. We all know that chakra is a combination of both physical and spiritual energy, correct? Get on with it already, troublesome Hyuga, Shikaku said in a fit of annoyance. As a head of a clan that prized information, he didn't like it when people beat around the bush concerning something so important. If you let me finish, then I'll tell you, Hiashi said in annoyance. To continue, see. Chakra is mostly colored blue and individual affinities tend to change a person's chakra corresponding their elements, fire is red, water is blue, lightning is purple, and so on. When I used my Byakugan on Naruto, I saw that his coils were flooded with white that is associated with spiritual energy. The guardian spirit is a combination of white and red, spiritual energy and the element of fire. Sarutobi nodded, agreeing with the man's discovery since it coincided with Naruto's explanation of his bloodline. Hiyashi is correct. Naruto's bloodline requires only the spiritual energy of chakra. It manifested when the mob, he spat as he glared at the nervous civilian council, attacked him while under extreme depression when the boy found out that he can't mold chakra. According to Naruto, his ancestor visited him while in a trance and informed him of his abilities as a shaman. Shaman, Sume exclaimed. Did I hear that right? Naruto is a shaman. Yes, he is a shaman according to his ancestor's spirit. Do you have the name of this ancestor? Sume asked immediately, a nervous yet excited hint to her tone. Did Naruto get his name? Sarutobi turned to the folder and confirmed what was written. According to Naruto, the name of the spirit that visited him was Asakura Hao. Shit, I can't believe the old tales were real. Sume exclaimed excitedly, ousing everyone to look at her as if she was crazy. What tales? Please share them with us, Sume. Any information, especially history, about this is greatly appreciated. Sume took a deep breath to calm herself down. You all know that my clan is deeply connected to canines, right? She asked the council, causing everyone to nod while Shikaku waved at her to continue. Well, according to Inuzuka lore, before the shinobi world came to be, my ancestors was part of a larger clan that worshipped the spirits, animal spirits to be exact. In the past, shamans roamed the land that was aid to be the bridge between the world of the living and the world of the spirits. They had all sorts of abilities that many of us would deem as godly, giving them the power to converse with spirits, allowing the spirits to possess them to communicate with the living, use the spirits as weapons, destroying armies, and healing the sick. Our most ancient of texts described a tournament of sorts, held every 500 years millennia ago, though it is no longer in practice when the shamans disappeared from the world. This tournament is fought by various shamans with the winner given the power to the ultimate guardian spirit that governed the spirit world, the Great Spirit. So where does this Asakura Hao comes in? Asked one of the council members who had a greedy glint in his eyes. The shinobi council and elders saw it and made a note to keep an eye on the man just in case he made a move on Naruto. They already considered the boy an asset to the village, other than being a Jinchuriki. With his newfound abilities, he was definitely a prize they would protect at all cost. The winner of the last tournament was named Asakura Hao and was said to be the most powerful shaman in the world. If he is the Gaki's ancestor, then he is practically more powerful, if not, on par with Hao. Sume told the council to their shock. She then realized something. Holy shit, I just remembered. The spirit of fire is actually a part of the Great Spirit and embodies the aspect of destruction. The spirit of fire was Hao's guardian spirit due to his power. If it is Naruto's guardian now, then the Gaki is definitely a descendant of Hao. There's no mistaking it. Whispers were being traded as the various council members tried to wrap their minds around the fact that the village pariah, the holder of Kyuubi, was in command of one of the most powerful forces in nature. It was ironic that he has the spirit of fire, considering Konoha's motto of the will of fire. Naruto definitely don't do things by half, doesn't he? Sarutobi said with a chuckle before looking at Sume, who was acting like a fangirl. Sume, is it possible to borrow these history books about shamans if you can spare them? Sume shook her head, shocking everyone for disobeying someone an Inuzuka considers an alpha in the village. I can't lend you the books, Hokage-sama, but I'll be more than happy to make copies for you. I can't part with the original since it is one of our clan's most guarded heirloom, she explained, causing the Hokage to nod in understanding. Understandable. Please have the copies delivered to me as soon as possible, Sume. It would be a great help to Naruto to understand his abilities. What do you mean? I thought he already knows about his abilities. Chusa asked nervously. He does, but only those practiced by his ancestor. However, Naruto was not imparted with the history of shamans, so he needs all the background information he could get his hands on, though I doubt he would need it since he can easily converse with the spirits. You mean he already demonstrated Hyōgatai? Sume asked immediately. Yes, I think that was the technique he used. How come you are familiar with it? Sarutobi asked curiously. It's in the Inuzuka history book, Hokage-sama. Shamans have the ability to see and talk to spirits, but in order for the spirit to interact with the physical world, it is necessary for the shaman to take the spirit into themselves. According to the lore, the technique is called Hyoigatai. Ah, he did say that technique before he was possessed by Hashirama-sensei. What was the general reaction of everyone upon hearing the Shodime's name? Hashirama-sensei and Tobirama-sensei entered my office according to Naruto. With permission, Naruto used his technique to sync with Hashirama-sensei and we had a little talk, said the aged leader, his facing showing happiness for being able to speak to one he considered a father figure. Are you sure he wasn't faking it, Hokage-sama? Asked Danzo, though immediately regretted it when Sume and Sarutobi leveled him a glare. He was speaking in Hashirama-sensei's voice. He used a term of endearment that he only uses in private that I'm sure Naruto doesn't know since he has no idea that I can summon Enma. Sarutobi said dryly, Anno. Yet at the fact that Danzo was being his usual paranoid self. You better watch yourself, Danzo. I don't like it when you make a mockery of Naruto-sama. Sume growled, baring her canines at the one-eyed warhawk. Naruto-sama, the Sandame asked the one in amusement, causing Sume to blush. For us Inuzuka, shamans are revered above everything else. It was a shaman that gave us the ability to form bonds with canines. Since Naruto-sama is a proven shaman, then he has the Inuzuka's respect. The Inuzuka matriarch declared proudly before leveling her full glare at the nervous civilian council. If the civilians attack Naruto-sama again, the Inuzuka clan will be there to make you wish you were never born. This is troublesome, said Shikaku. I vote that we place Uzumaki Naruto under the Shinobi Council's protection under the Konoha Charter. Sarutobi coughed, catching everyone's attention. Before we put that into vote, I would like to inform everyone that Naruto requested for a name change. He wants to change his name to Asakura Naruto in honor of his new status as a shaman and to bring back the legacy of his ancestors. I have no problem with that, said Sume with a feral grin. He couldn't wait to go back to her clan and inform them of this development. All right, let's put this into vote. All in favor for the name change, please raise your hand. He was surprised when all the Shinobi Council and most of the Civilians Council members raised their hands. Majority wins. From this day forward, Naruto will now be known as Asakura Naruto. Now, the vote for placing Naruto under, the entirety of the Shinobi Council raised their hands, causing the Hokage to smirk. All right, that answered that question. Hey, we didn't agree with that, said Sakuya angrily. Your view on the matter is not needed, Haruno-san, Shibi said with some heat, causing everyone to look at him incredulously. The Aburame clan wasn't no to display emotions, and the clan head just displayed it twice in a row. According to the village charter, only the Shinobi Council can vote when someone is placed under Shinobi protection. Shibi is right. If Naruto is to be placed under Shinobi protection, then only Shinobi can vote, said Inoichi with uncharacteristic smugness. He never liked the Civilian Council since they were trying to undermine the Hokage's rule. This was a flick to their nose and he relished it. That settles it. Naruto will be placed under Shinobi protection from this day onwards. Any attack directed at Naruto will result in the military taking actions against the perpetrators. Sarutobi informed the council, though this was mainly addressed to the civilian side. He was about to continue when Kaharu raised her hand. Yes, Honorable Elder, I would like to pass a motion for Naruto to be placed under the boundaries of the Clan Restoration Act. Kaharu declared. This declaration caused the civilian council to smirk. And why do you propose such a thing, Elder Kaharu? Sarutobi asked with a raised eyebrow. He already expected this to happen and already have a counter in place. We gathered from the revelation that shamans are powerful. If we get Naruto under the CRA, then it would increase the number of shamans in Konoha. This ability of his is considered a bloodline, is it not? Yes. It is considered a bloodline, but placing the boy under CRA at this point in time is not only useless, but also stupid as well. Sarutobi said smugly. I don't find it useless. Kaharu retorted with some heat. Aside from the fact that you are promoting cradle robbing, this caused most the Shinobi Council to snicker, though Sume was laughing her head off. CRA is purely Volu. NT Eri and only Naruto can request for that before we can put it to vote. If he does, then I don't mind approving it. Fine, Kaharu said with a huff, paling at the idea of being labeled a cradle robber considering her age. Does this mean Asakura-san will be again enrolled in the shinobi program? Danzo asked, using the right honorific for the newly revealed shaman since he didn't want to get on the Inuzuka's bad side. That is his choice, though considering his abilities, I doubt being a shinobi would be his calling. It would only hinder him in that regard. Sarutobi mused. Why do you say that? Asked Danzo in curiosity. Let me put it into perspective. You have here a reborn shaman in command of a powerful guardian entity considered as an aspect of nature that embodies destruction placed in a genin cell. Not only would Konoha be the laughingstock of the elemental nations, it would be overkill to put him with a group that would surely be below him in terms of abilities. Being placed with a team would spark jealousy since Naruto's abilities would definitely overshadow everyone else. Sarutobi pointed out, causing everyone to nod and Danzo to agree. However, if Naruto permits, I will be placing him under a specialized training program and offer him a position in the village. What position is that? Was Danzo's immediately reaction. That is for me to know and for you to find out. Sarutobi said with a grin that infuriated his one-eyed colleague. Naruto yawned as he stretched, wincing a bit as his muscles protested the action. He didn't know how long he slept, but the strain from allowing the Shodime to possess him was gone. He shouldn't have doubted his body's ability to adapt since he was always a fast healer. He groggily walked around to realize that he fell asleep inside the Hokage office. He looked down on his lap to see his guardian spirit, GS, sitting contentedly on his lap. He was quite surprised that the spirit of fire, Soth, was still in Oversoul OS mode considering how large the Furioku requirement was to keep his GF solid in the physical world. He thanked the spirits that how instilled the knowledge of the Asakura shamans into his head, or he would be fumbling in the dark concerning his abilities. Hey, you want me to end the OS? Naruto asked his GS. He knew that the Soth didn't have the ability to talk, and his ancestor never really treated the aspect as if it was a living being. Well, how did, but it was more along the line of a weapon than an actual guardian. He saw the GS shook its head, appearing content in keeping its form active for a while longer. Naruto shrugged. If you insist, he said before patting the chibified OS on the head as he started to plan. Naruto realized that he needs to make plans to return the path of shamans into the world. He knew, for a fact, that the world was all about balance, the cycle of yin and yang. If he manifested his shamanic abilities, then it was quite possible that some would be seeing spirits soon enough. It would be unfair to leave the new shamans alone, and he knew how hard it was to learn shamanic abilities without a proper teacher. Such was the case. Naruto decided that he needed a new place to call home and possibly turn a part of it into a school of sorts for the new shamans that he knew would be cropping up sometime soon. Might as well get started, murmured Naruto as he grabbed Soth from his lap and placed the GS on his, stood up from the chair and made his way to the shelf where his Gigi kept some documents about Konoha. It took a while for him to find a map of the village. He liberated the map from its home before making his way to the Hokage's desk and opened it. Thankfully, the map was labeled accordingly so he knew which was which. If I want to set up shop, then I need a place that is quiet, a bit secluded since I don't want the noise of the village to intrude upon my privacy. And a place where natural Furioku is at its highest since I want to start making my tools for divination, he murmured absent-mindedly as he studied the map. He didn't notice when the Sandame entered the office, surprised that this charge was already awake and concentrating something on his table. He noticed the boy was so engrossed over something that he didn't notice him enter. He walked over to the long-haired blonde to see that he was perusing a map of Konoha. Looking for something, Naruto-kun? He asked, startling the boy. Gigi, you startled me, Naruto accused the aged leader, who chuckled. Yes, I can see that, said the Hokage before going around the table and taking his seat. Why are you studying the map so intently? Well, I'm looking for a place to set up a home for me, Naruto said with a shrug as he started looking at the map again. You already have an apartment, the Sandame pointed out. I know, but it's too small, Gigi. Besides, I Need a bigger space to set up a school for new shamans. New shamans? Asked the Sandaime in surprise, causing Naruto to nod. The world is all about balance, Gigi, explained Naruto as he tapped his head. The entire knowledge of Asakura shamanic practice is right here in my head. Since I manifested my ancestors' abilities, the world will surely balance it out by granting some with shamanic powers as well. I know how hard it is to discover the ability by yourself, so I'm thinking of setting up shop somewhere that I can consider a home, as well as open a school of sorts to hold classes for new shamans. Besides, I need a place to practice my art without space or the villagers hindering me. Art? The Hokage asked in confusion. Shamans are not limited to conversing with spirits, Gigi. Above everything else, shamans are the medium of the spirit world and the living world. Shamans, aside from exorcising evil spirits, we also have abilities for healing and divination. I know how to make the tools, but I need a place to house and use them in peace. Naruto explained to his surrogate grandfather. What do you mean divination? Is this about predicting the future? Asked somewhat dubious Hokage. It is more than that, Naruto said with a smile. The future is a fickle thing and there is no way to accurately predict the future unless the spirits relinquish the information. Shamanic divination is different. For example, I can divine a place if it is a good spot for business, or I can divine a house to make it more auspicious for a family to live in. I can also help divine areas to set up protections or barriers for a bountiful harvest, stop harmful spirits from entering, or even call on good spirits to bless the village. Amazing. Sarutobi breathed out, his mind already going a mile a minute on the possibilities of such abilities Naruto possessed. He would definitely support the boy, and he knew the council wouldn't raise up fuss over it. What are your requirements for a clan house, Naruto-kun? Clan house? Naruto asked in confusion. I just finished a meeting with the council and I corrected the problem Hashirama-sensei informed me about. Anyway, your name change has been approved, so you are now an Asakura as you requested, and, with the blessing of the council, you can start your own clan here in Konoha. We see. And give you clan head status due to your age, but that will come in time, so there is no rush. I'm not planning on making babies anytime soon, Gigi. Naruto deadpan, causing the Sandaime to blush. Aren't you too young to know about that? The Hokage accused the smirking blonde. Let me remind you that I have the Asakura family knowledge in my head, so that involves the birds and bees. You are spared from giving me the talk that I know you're dreading, Naruto said with a smirk as he sensed the uneasiness and nervousness in the man's heart. Thanks to his reishi anyway, I don't nd the clan thing, since I plan to jumpstart the Asakura family here in Konoha. However, if I do find people with shamanic abilities, can you make it so that they become a part of the clan? I don't think that would be a problem, though there is a restriction. You can only adopt a person into your clan if they don't have a family and with their permission. Naruto shrugged. That's all right. I don't want to separate them from their families. Anyway, regarding the requirement, I need a spacious area surrounded by nature, possibly a place where wildlife is plentiful and away from the noise. Why do you need such a place? Furioku, or spiritual energy, is needed for my art to work. I need a place where nature is abundant, so there are large amounts of Furioku available for me. I sense that Konoha is teeming with spiritual energy thanks to all the trees in the area, so that's not a problem. However, I definitely need a place where I won't be disturbed, explained Naruto. Before an area in the map caught his eye. It was the perfect place to put up a home, and it was definitely auspicious enough for his plans. What is this area here, Gigi? He asked the Hokage, indicating the area with his finger, causing the aged leader to pale. I can give you any area you wish except that place, Naruto-kun. Why? That area is called Training Ground 44, or what our shinobi call the Forest of Death. That forest was created by the Hashirama-sensei using his Mokuden. Due to the large amounts of ambient chakra in that forest, the animals have grown quite large. Hell, even the snakes there are as big as summon animals. I don't want to expose you to that kind of danger. Naruto smirked before pointing at his GS on his shoulder, who was looking at the map as well. Gigi, I have my guardian here, and I think we all know for a fact that he can protect me. Naruto said with a grin. Besides, I'm a fully trained shaman with ties to nature. I don't think animals would be a problem. I'm not so sure if that is a good idea, the Hokage said dubiously. I'll prove it if you give me a chance. Naruto challenged, causing the old man to sigh and give in to the boy's request. Besides, it would be nice to see what Naruto was capable of. Fine, I'll bring you there later, he promised. Thanks. So, do you think you can lend me a hand in setting up a clan house there? Gigi, I can't give you any money, Naruto-kun, but I can lend you one of my shinobi to help you out. How can a shinobi help? This shinobi has the ability to use Mokuden, and one of his techniques allows him to make a house from scratch. I definitely want to see him make a house for me, Naruto said in excitement, making the Sandaime chuckle. So when can we go to this forest? It's already past midnight, so why don't I take you there before lunch? I have some documents I need to finish to finalize your name change, as well as your new status as a shaman in the village. The council also placed you under shinobi protection, so you don't have to worry about mobs attacking you again. Well, I'm not really worried about them anymore, said Naruto with grin. But being in your protection is definitely welcome, so thank you, Gigi. It was a pleasure, Naruto-kun. Why don't you come by again an hour before lunch? We'll grab something to eat at Ichiraku before going to the forest. I hope you don't mind if I bring some of my anbu with us. Naruto shrugged. I don't mind, Gigi. Will Dog be there? Of course, since he is part of your protection detail. I'll bring the shinobi I promised to set up your clan house. Great. I think I'll head home for some sleep, said Naruto as he sent a mental command his GS. Nodding its head, the Soph went outside via the window with Naruto following. He stopped by the window before looking at his surrogate grandfather from over his shoulder. See you later, Gigi, he told the man before jumping out. The Sandaime paled when he saw his surrogate grandson jump out of the window. Shinobi could do that, but a 5-year-old without training couldn't, shaman or not. He immediately looked out the window to see Naruto being held aloft by a larger version of his GS. Let me show you one of my abilities, Gigi, said Naruto before flaring his Furyoku. Oversoul. Spirit of Fire, Kurobina. The Sandaime was surprised when the Soph burst into flames before surrounding Naruto's exposed body. The flames solidified to form something a black armor with 2 pillars on his back. The lower part of the armor had Soph's arm and clawed hand, and a protrusion like a tail. Naruto was now floating unassisted just outside the window. This is what I call Kurobina, an armor OS when I merge with Soph, giving me the ability of flight. This is also a powerful version of Soph and doesn't take a lot of my energy to manifest. The twin pillars on my back are ons that can fire powerful beams of intense heat, hotter than that of magma. Naruto explained before turning towards the direction of his apartment complex. See you at lunch, Gigi. With a burst of speed, Naruto flew away from the Hokage Tower, leaving a Sandaime Hokage sporting a headache. Naruto couldn't help but stare at the large trees as he and his group stood outside the fence of Training Ground 44. Why such a large fence, Gigi? Asked Naruto in curiosity. He didn't have Soph around since he had this gut feeling that he won't be needing his GS. Besides, he didn't want Soph to burn his potential home before he could set things up, danger or no. As I told you last night, the Forest of Death is filled to the brim with nature chakra thanks to the Shodaime's Mokuden. He animals that lived there absorbed the ambient chakra that enhanced their size, strength, and speed. You might say that they evolved if you want to be technical about it, explained the Hokage as he gestured for Dog to open the gate. Everyone entered with the Anbu forming a protective ring around the duo. They walked for half an hour before they were surrounded by large tigers and snakes. The Anbu and the Hokage were immediately at defensive, but Naruto shook them out of that. I'll take care of this, Gigi, said Naruto as he placed a ram seal over his chest. The animals must have sensed what he was about to do when all of them attacked at once. Omnudo Mahu. Shikigami. The leaves on the forest floor floated up before they took form. As if on command, the hundreds of Shikigamis intercepted the attacks and proceeded to tackle the gigantic animals and throwing them back without effort. The Sandaime and the Anbu team gaped at him in shock, causing Naruto to chuckle. You've seen nothing yet, said Naruto as he took out 2 rectangular papers from his pocket. He stayed up for an hour last night to create the seals so he could summon house protectors before he gained the Soph. He threw the fudas as his Furioku surged. Amudo Mahu. Oni Kyodai. The fudas transformed into two large ogre-like constructs that towered over the giant animals of the forest. The two were huge, one red and one blue. They landed causing a mild earthquake to form due to their combined weight. The two growled as they took defensive stances against the animals. Zenki. Goki. Protect. Naruto barked, causing the two to immediately make a path by punching or throwing the animals that blocked their master's path. Naruto continued his walk as his Shikigamis swatted the attackers aside. The Hokage and his Anbu details gaped at the enormity of what just happened before following Naruto and the protection of his summons. What are they? The cat-masked Anbu asked in awe. They are my protectors, the Oni Kyodai Zenki and Kuki. They are my personal guards, so to speak. Naruto answered as he studied the forest while ignoring the destruction the two were causing. He was listening to the whispers of the trees, leading him to a perfect spot for his clan house. I thought the giant you flew with last night was your personal guard. Cat P. pointed out, causing some of the Anbu to nod in agreement, their eyes not leaving the two guards forming a perimeter around them. Soph is my personal spirit. These two are mere guards that I summoned using the tags I made. Besides, using Soph here is counterproductive since his attacks are fire-based. I don't want to burn down my future home because I need protection. He said dryly. Sure, Soph was a powerful guardian but not perfect. Are you sure you want to set up shop here, Naruto-kun? As you can see, the forest is filled to the brim with predators and even you would be hard-pressed to defend against them. Naruto chuckled as he pulled out a stack of fudas before showing one of them to the group. I know. This is why I brought these. Naruto showed them one of the fudas who had a drawing on its face. These are called defensive fudas. I will set it up around the area where I want to put up my home. Once activated, it will erect a solid barrier powered by the ambient energy in the air. Nothing will get in without my permission. Amazing. So it can stop anything? Dog asked in amazement. Well, not everything. I need something more than paper to top something more powerful than animals on steroids. Naruto joked. Besides, once my house is done, I will set up a more permanent protection. Anyone with ill intent towards me would not be let across the threshold of my compound. I will also have spirits guarding the surrounding area to discourage eavesdroppers and invaders. Besides, considering how my status as a shaman is now spread around the village, I will expect quite a lot of unwanted visitors from within and some outsiders. The defensive barrier I plan to set up will definitely give them something to think about before trying it again. He said the last part with a sadistic grin on his face that scared the group. The group walked in silence, no longer afraid of attacks thanks to their gigantic bodyguards. So, Naruto-kun, do you have a specific place in mind for your new clan house? Asked the Sandaime as Naruto shrugged. The spirits of the forest are telling me that there is a large clearing a few kilometers ahead of us. They informed me that it is big enough for what I have in mind. Naruto answered. You can talk to trees. The Sandaime asked. His head couldn't grasp the concept of a shaman talking to trees. Trees don't talk, period. Well, talk is not an accurate term to use in this scenario, Gigi, said Naruto as he patted the trunk of a rather thick tree and feeling its happiness for being acknowledged. Trees are living beings and each one of them has a spirit. As a shaman, I am attuned to the spirits of nature, allowing me to communicate with them. They don't talk to me, per se, but they communicate in another way, something along the line of impression rather than vocal communication. So you are saying that they show you images? Sarutobi asked in confirmation. Exactly. Naruto agreed, though it was far from the truth. It was hard to explain the concept of nature to someone not well versed in the shamanic arts. Anyway, we shouldn't be far from the place now. An hour later, the group found themselves in a large clearing that could easily house the 5 Hokage Tower with ease. Sandaime-sama, this is the unmapped portion of the Forest of Death. Dog informed the Sandaime, his voice in awe since this was the first time they stepped foot in the fabled S-class sector of Training Ground 44. No one, not even Anko who made the forest a home, was able to venture out this far without getting killed, and they practically strolled to get here without worries. I know, I sent a few of your comrades here before after the third G. Reed Shinobi wore to map the place out, but they couldn't reach these area. They aborted before they could even step foot at the boundary line. The Sandaime said dryly before turning to Naruto, who was grinning like a loon. I take it this is the place. You bet. This place is perfect. Naruto exclaimed happily. So, who's the guy with the Mokuden? The Sandaime and the Anbu pointed at a rather nervous masked individual at the rear of the group. My name is Tenzo, Asakura-sama. Tenzo introduced himself. Asakura-sama, where in the world did that come from? Naruto asked, confused at the honorific. You just took us to the legendary area here in the Forest of Death with ease that would make our Anbu commander drool in envy. You deserve the respect, Asakura-sama. Enzo replied with a grin behind his mask, enjoying the annoyed look on the young shaman's face. Naruto sighed before fishing out a folded paper from his pocket and handing it to a confused Yamato. What's this? That's the blueprint and drawing of my clan house. Since the Hokage told me that you can make a wooden house with your Mokuden, it is only right that I give you something to work with. Naruto said cheekily before pulling out his defensive fudas. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to set up the barrier so we won't have to worry about the animals turning us into dinner. Zenki, Kuki, keep everyone safe. He ordered his Shikigami guards as he started placing the fudas on the trees around the clearing and activating them to set up the initial barrier to keep the unwanted animals out. Yamato watched Naruto's retreating back before looking at the complicated drawing of a clan house in his hands. He sighed, causing those who heard him to snicker. Well, what are you waiting for, Tenzo-kun? Start building. Dog joked. I hope you have some soldier pills handy, senpai. This is going to drain me dry before I could get this done. Tenzo said dryly as he started the hand seals for his Mokuden jutsu. He was going to demand a vacation after this job. A 9-year-old Naruto nodded respectfully to passing merchant as he casually made his way to the Hawk Age Tower for a meeting with the Sandaime. It has been a year and a half since his status as a shaman was spread throughout the village. There were quite a few who were skeptical about the whole Hing being the container of the Kyuubi didn't help his popularity, but it was easily remedied when he allowed the spirits of their relatives to possess him and telling them things that he shouldn't know. His clan house was finished in 2 days after finding the clearing in the S-class sector in Training Ground 44. Tenzo could have finished it in a day, thanks to Naruto supplying him with RGY using his innate knowledge of Chosenji Ryukatsu, but Naruto was adamant that he take a rest. Besides, he was planning to set up a permanent barrier around the clearing and he wasn't comfortable doing so in front of a crowd. They might not be shamans, but they were shinobi. They were trained to be observant, and Naruto had no plans broadcasting his techniques to the world. He also set a path so anyone can go to his new home without getting eaten by the predators. He made a map for the Hokage and dogs since they were more than welcome to visit anytime they wished. When his new home was finished, Tenzo happily made a few furniture for him since the place was too large and too empty to ignore. Tables, beds, and cabinets were immediately created and the Anbu team was commandeered by the Hokage to bring them into the house. Naruto made a few hundred Shikigamis to help. If the small leaf spirits were strong enough to tackle the denizens of the forest, then they were strong enough to carry furniture. While the Anbu team was busy being interior decorators, the Sandaime took Naruto to a shop in the village that didn't hate Naruto's guts. He financed Naruto to get started with his new library since the newly awakened shaman wanted to transcribe his knowledge into paper as soon as possible. If a new shaman pops up, then he would definitely need books to keep them educated. After all, he didn't want to coddle them by spoon-feeding them information. If they want to be powerful shamans, then they would have to work for it. Anyway, Naruto bought a lot of blank scrolls and books, boxes of inks and spare brushes, blank tags used for fuinjutsu but could be used as fudas since it was of exceptional quality, and some blank papers for his notes and whatnot. He also bought clothes since he wanted something more refined. He bought a set of formal kimonos for special functions, casual pants and shirts for traveling, and a custom-made silver poncho. He saw in his memory that Hao looked cool wearing a poncho, so he definitely needed to have one. They exited the store with Naruto already wearing his new poncho. The blonde shaman dragged the Hokage to the nearest bookstore for basic books on chakra. When questioned why he needed such books, Naruto answered that he wanted to know how different chakra was with spiritual energy. After all, the students he take in might want to be shinobi shamans in the future. At least he could explain the two energies to his students if it happens. When the shopping was done, Naruto created a few shikiga mis to bring the purchases to his new home. He was inwardly smug at seeing the disbelieving looks from the villagers when they saw his shikigamis floating behind him like a funeral procession, carrying bags and boxes without a care in the world. However, he find it weird to see looks of amazement and disbelief from the villagers compared to the usual glares of hatred or disgust. With his clan house done, secluded himself in his home 2 months since he was busy making his divination tools from scratch and putting the Asakura shamanic knowledge in his head to paper. It took 6 months to finish everything, but it was a worthwhile chore. Another 2 months was spent rediscovering his abilities using the knowledge his ancestors crammed into his head. Thankfully, he had House NT lexicon of Chosenji Ryukatsu in his head to supplement the other Asakura techniques and abilities. Not only did it make him stronger, it made his techniques more potent. His shamanic abilities were stronger than ever, but his physical skill sucks. He knew from his memories that Asakura Hao was a great taijutsu master on top of his Omnudo. Naruto had the knowledge, but actual practice was non-existent. Such was the case. Naruto spent 4 months training his body to accommodate Hao's complicated taijutsu style, the Seireikan or the elemental spirit fist. With his physical aiming at a level he could be happy with, Naruto exited his home for the first time in 8 months to meet with his surrogate grandfather. The Sandaime also compiled a list of jobs for him to do which served 2 purposes. 1. It would broadcast his abilities as a shaman, thus eliminating the doubts hanging in the air. And 2. To jumpstart the Asakura coffers since he practically owned the hawk. Some money after that shopping stint. Naruto didn't mind the work since he was bored and he wanted to use his shaman abilities to cement his status in the village. Most of his first jobs were for the shinobi military, specifically those who had unfinished business with their dead friends and relatives. His first session was with Dog, who requested his services to contact his sensei, the Yondaime Hokage, Rin, and Obito from the other side. This was partially successful. He easily contacted Rin and allowed her to possess his body so Kakashi could apologize for killing her. The Yondaime couldn't be contacted since the seal he used against the Kyuubi ensured that he would be eaten by the Shinigami, and there was no way for Naruto to directly coerce the Avatar of Death to relinquish his hold on such his soul. Yes, Naruto already know of the Kyuubi sealed inside him since some of the shinobi who died during the Kyuubi attack told him about it, much to the Sandaime's consternation. However, the shocker came when he told Dog that Obito was alive since he couldn't find a trace of the man in the afterlife. Dog thanked him profusely and was paid an A-rank mission for this. Thanks to Dog, his abilities were spread throughout the shinobi ranks and he had quite a lot of clients wanting to get in touch with their loved ones. In a span of 4 months, Naruto now had a bank account with millions of ryo to jumpstart his holdings. He also had a few projects sponsored directly by the Hokage. The jobs include blessing farmlands for better crops. Konoha had a surplus of agricultural products since that year and was now exporting to the outlying villages, exorcising spirits, who knew that Konoha had a lot of them, and erecting a barrier around the village to stop evil spirits from entering the village. Speaking of evil spirits, Naruto was somewhat shocked to discover that the elemental nations were plagued with mysterious happenings that were spiritual in origin. They were relatively ignored since such happenings were blamed on shinobi and their jutsus. This led to a crash course about recognizing spirits to the shinobi ranks so they could report such problems in the future, and for Naruto to act on such reports so he could get rid of the problem before they grow out of control. The last big job was at Fire Country capital. He was contracted by the Fire Daimyo to erect a barrier around the palace since a lot of weird things were happening. Naruto easily found the problem. Spirits of the past advisors were hanging around making a mess of things. Even in death, politicians never leave their seat of power. He exorcised the spirits and erected a barrier around the daimyo's home to stop the spirits hanging around the capital from tormenting him and his family. He was paid quite handsomely for that job and Naruto wouldn't mind doing it again if given a chance. It didn't take him long to get to his destination and his gut was screaming at him that something was about to happen on a grand scale. The spirits were restless and he picked up on their anxiety easily. He entered the aged leader's office to see him poring over a report with a worried frown on his face. "Good afternoon, Gigi." Naruto greeted the Hokage with a nod before sitting on a chair in front of the leader's desk. "Thank you for coming on such short notice, Naruto-kun. But I need your services over something that concerns the village," the Sandaime said seriously, causing Naruto to frown. "I sensed something large is about to happen, but I don't know what." "What seems to be the problem, Gigi?" "I want you to divine what the Uchiha are planning," the aged leader requested seriously. What did the Uchiha do now?" Naruto asked in exasperation. He never did like the Uchiha that he dubbed as the red-eyed bastards. Quite a few of them had their Sharingan active as he performed some of his basic techniques in the public. He smugly smirked at them since he knew there was no way for them to copy it no matter how much they tried. "I am receiving reports from my spy within their ranks that they are planning something big. So far, my spy hasn't been able to get exact details other than the fact that they are holding clan meetings more frequently than usual." "That's disturbing." Naruto frowned, taking out his Zen from his sleeve and opening it easily with a casual flick of his wrist. He fanned himself slowly, a habit he acquired when he was thinking something deep, his eyes glazing as he spread his mind to converse with the spirits in the surrounding area. Sarutobi was silent as he watched his grandson go into a trance. He recognized the glazed look on the boy's eyes, an indication that he was errantly conversing with whatever spirits within range. It was 15 minutes later that Naruto exited his meditation with a large frown on his face, which alarmed the Hokage since he knew that the revelation would be nothing but bad news. "Bad news, Gigi," warned Naruto as he snapped his Tessen close in agitation and a hint of anger. "What did you divine?" Sarutobi asked immediately. "The Uchiha are planning a coup. Right now, your spy, a weasel-masked Anbu, is on his way here after killing an Uchiha when he was found out, a best friend I believe. He will be appearing in 5 seconds," said Naruto as he turned his head to his side. As predicted, Weasel appeared in a puff of smoke and leaves, kneeling in front of the Hokage. "Hokage-sama, I bring you." He stopped when he noticed Naruto looking at him seriously. "Asakura-sama, I didn't know you were here." Naruto simply nodded to the Anbu before turning to the Hokage. "I'll be leaving, Gigi. I think Weasel would be more informative in this regard than I do, though I am quite sure that his report would complement what I told you before he arrived," Naruto told the worried Hokage before turning to Weasel, who was feeling determined and resigned as if a decision has been made and there was nothing he could do about it. "Weasel-san, for what you are about to do, please know that someone here in Konoha wouldn't look at you in hate. If you need my help, let the Hokage know. He will direct you to me." With a bow of respect towards the two, Naruto stood up from his chair and exited the office without a word. "It's quite creepy when he does that," said Weasel with a shiver. He knew for a fact that the shaman's eyes were looking deep into his soul. His words were cryptic, but it filled him with courage and determination for what lay ahead. If anything else, a shaman to help him in the future was a boon that he wouldn't pass up if needed. "What do you expect from a shaman?" The Sandaime asked rhetorically before his eyes took on a steely glint. "Report." Weasel gave his report, each words weighing heavily on the Hokage. It would seem that Naruto was right, the Uchiha was definitely planning a coup, and it would start with an assassination attempt. Him and the elders were the initial target. He listened attentively to Weasel's information when he remembered what Naruto said to the kneeling Anbu. "For what you are about to do, please know that someone here in Konoha wouldn't look at you in hate." The Sandaime Hokage sighed. Trust the boy to give hints about the future. Yes, it was true that prophecy and divining the future was a tricky subject, but the aged leader knew that spirits tend to share some information to the boy since he was quite likable. It didn't help that Naruto was a powerful shaman that made spirits respect him more. "I am calling in the elders. I already know what to do, but it is always a good idea to have a second opinion," declared the Sandaime before sending off Weasel to bring the elders to his office. "I think I'll bring Danzo into this. Root would be a big help in quelling the repercussions if things continue as it is." Naruto watched the massacre unfold from his perch on top of a large tree in the Uchiha district. Weasel, or Uchiha Itachi, was killing his clan. He could feel the adamantine Resignation and resignation that gripped Itachi's heart as he spilled the blood of his family, targeting both the guilty and innocent with brutal efficiency. The lone Asakura knew the sacrifice Itachi was doing for the sake of the village. Naruto understood the price the Hokage, the elders, and Itachi has to pay for upsetting the balance. Thousands of voices, both innocent and judged, cried "OU" to the shaman as if expecting for him to act. He didn't heed the voice since this was a necessity to save more lives. If the Uchiha had their way, Konoha would become a haven of death and destruction, and if push comes to shove, Naruto would burn the village to the ground before the Uchiha arrogance could take root. No, Naruto would have none of that, so he didn't go against what was happening right now in front of him. The massacre would continue with his blessings. Naruto already sent his GF into the compound, devouring the souls of the perpetrators while sparing the innocent. Of course, he had to cloak his GF in an invisibility spell of Hao's design so his part in the massacre would stay in secret. He face saddened when he saw Itachi subject his brother to the powerful genjutsu his evolved Sharingan granted him, resulting in his brother screaming before slumping to the ground like a puppet without its strings. A lone tear escaped Itachi's eyes as he finished casting the Tsukiyomi on his brother. He was about to exit the compound and start his life as a missing nin when he felt eyes settle on him. He looked up to see the blonde shaman he grew to respect. Give him a sad smile before nodding in understanding, Naruto's words echoing in his mind as if reassuring him that he did the right thing. For whatever you are about to do, please know that someone here in Konoha wouldn't look at you in hate. Thank you, Asakura-sama, whispered Itachi. Despite the distance, he knew that the shaman heard it. Please watch over my brother in my stead. Itachi saw Naruto nod before sprinting out of the compound to his new life outside the village walls. A rogue, a killer, a traitor. His heart didn't waver though since he knew that someone usted believed in his innocence and sacrifice for his beloved Konoha. The Uchiha massacre, as the village dubbed it, was brutal and he was immediately called to the scene to determine who killed them. Of course, he made a show of doing something since he didn't need to rely on his abilities to reveal the identity of the killer. After listening to the wails of the villagers for the loss of such a powerful clan, Naruto proceeded to walk through the compound, ignoring the carnage around him. He listened to the spirits and sent some of them to the afterlife. Others decided to stay and watch over Sasuke being the sole survivor, mostly aunts and uncles who didn't have a hand in the coup. Naruto sighed as he sent the last spirit to the afterlife before turning to see a sad Hokage walking towards him. How are you holding up, Gigi? Naruto asked his surrogate grandfather. He knew the old man was the one who ordered the massacre. It was a hard decision but he had to do it. There was no way out of it since peaceful negotiations wouldn't be able to penetrate Uchiha Fugaku's arrogance. Burdened, Naruto-kun. This was a decision that I had to make, choosing the lesser of two evils for the village. The Sandaime said sadly as Naruto nodded in understanding. The spirits of the dead didn't blame you, Gigi. In fact, quite a lot of them understood yours and Itachi's sacrifice. Even if they don't blame me, I still blame myself, Naruto-kun. Time heals all wounds, old man. Naruto advised the man with a smile on his face. How is Sasuke? He is currently at the hospital. I don't know why Itachi subjected him to such a nightmare but I know he has his reasons. As it stands, the boy is in a coma, his mind horribly damaged by a powerful genjutsu. Inoichi tried to fix the damage but he can only do so much without destroying the boy's future. The aged leader informed him with a frown. Is there a way for you to help him? Naruto shook his head. There is but it is not a good idea. I can easily wipe out his memories of the massacre but that would be detrimental to his mental stability. If he wants to grow and become a great man then he need to face his demons head on. Naruto told the aged leader with a seriousness that didn't reflect his age. He is just a kid, Naruto-kun, the Sandaime pointed out. Yes, he is 2 years younger than me but that doesn't stop the fact that he is still a boy who has a responsibility to his dead clan. It is now up to him to bring back the Uchiha without his father tainting the new generation. In order to do that, he needs to face his past in order to pave the way for the brighter future. Naruto said seriously, making the Hokage nod in understanding. Fine. But please keep an eye on him. I promised Itachi that I would. Naruto said before making his way out of the compound. The Furioku in the air was making him dizzy. He sighed tiredly. This place is going to need a thorough cleansing. Why do you say that? Asked Sarutobi curiously. The spiritual energy in the air is so thick that it would attract demons in droves. I already told you that. A demon is created when an area is saturated in negative emotions with Furioku to back it up. To counter that, I will cleanse the area of any negative energies and erect a barrier. If I leave it be, we are going to have a demon infestation in our hands. Will Sasuke be staying here in the compound? That's his choice. I am already assigning a few Anbu to clean the place up. It should take a day or two to get it done. If he wants to stay here, then I'll assigning a few Anbu to keep an eye on him, possibly on a suicide watch since the boy's psyche was seriously damaged, said Sarutobi as he shook his head in disbelief. That's a good idea. Who knows what a kid his age would do after being subjected to such a horrible experience. Naruto agreed before pulling out a small Odin tile from the sleeve of his blue kimono. I tagged Itachi's signature. If you need to find him in the future, this tile will lead you to him. Keep it hidden and only use it when necessary. Why do you say that? Asked the Sandaime as he accepted the tile. He felt Itachi's chakra signature on the item, as well as something else. Holding it gave him the urge to go east. I don't know why, but something is going to happen in the future and Itachi is going to play a pivotal role in its success. Call it a divination of sorts, but this is mostly my gut instinct talking. Naruto said with smirk, causing the Hokage to laugh. I'll take your word for it, my boy. On his perch on top of an electric pole, a 12-year-old Naruto watched Sasuke attend his 4th year in the Shinobi Academy. After the massacre, the last loyal Uchiha of the Konoha did a complete 180. He was now a brooding boy who declared himself an avenger, intent on gaining power at any cost to avenge his clan. His mission in life was to defeat Itachi. Of course, due to his promise, Naruto tried to salvage whatever childhood Sasuke had, but it was impossible at this point. The boy's anger and hatred over his brother was absolute, and there was nothing he could do short of altering the boy's mind could change it. No, he wouldn't change Sasuke since that wouldn't really do anything. He would give the boy a chance. If he betrays the village, then he would have a pissed off shaman after his guts. Promise to Itachi be damned. Sighing, Naruto made his way to the Hokage's office to get started with his plans. He's been cooped up in the village for 6 years now, and he needed to broaden his horizons if he wanted to become an effective shaman. There was more to the world than his memories of his ancestors, and he wanted to experience it firsthand. He knocked on the door to the Hokage's office before entering. He saw the old man poring over the documents pertaining to who knows what. Good afternoon, Gigi. I was wondering if you have time to talk, asked Naruto before taking a seat when the Sandaime beckoned him to do so. I always have time for you, Naruto-kun. What do you want to talk about? Said the Sandaime as he pushed the paper aside and giving his surrogate grandson his undivided attention. I was wondering if you could grant me some travel rights for 1 year. Naruto told the surprised Hokage. You want to travel? What for? As a shaman, I need to learn of the world and connect with the different spirits in the land. Of course, shamans are born wanderers, allowing the spirits to guide their steps to whatever destination they deemed important. In my case, I just want a year to travel and see the sights and immerse myself in the different cultures of the elemental nations, explained Naruto as he tapped his temple. Besides, the geography has greatly changed, so I definitely want to experience the world's new geography firsthand. I guess there's no harm in that. The Sandaime shrugged. Despite his age, he knew for a fact that Naruto could easily take care of himself and had no problems letting the boy roam around. Would you give in to this old man's peace of mind to take an Anbu guard with you? Naruto laughed before shaking his head in negative. I don't think so, Gigi. I need to do this alone if I really want to get the most out of this trip. Fine, said the Hokage before pulling out a scroll from his drawer. He read the content before affixing his signature along with his seal. He rolled it up before handing it over to the shaman, who took it curiously. That is the ambassador level travel pass. It will allow you to enter any village with my authority and blessing. That is valid until this time next year. I hope that is enough since I can't do anything more. This is more than enough, Gigi. Naruto said happily. Where are you off to first? The old man asked curiously, wanting to know what the boy's travel plans were. I'm not really sure, but I'll make my way to Wave Country first before making my way to the now destroyed Uzushio. Naruto said with a hint of sadness in his voice that made the aged leader's heart clench. He already told the boy of his parents' identity years ago, as well as some stories of his mother's homeland, the now destroyed Uzushiogakure no Sato. Why do you want to go there? It's nothing but ruins. For a normal human. But for a shaman, there is more there than meets the eye. The reason why I want to visit my mother's homeland is to see it firsthand. Not just visualizing it from your stories, and possibly converse with a few spirits there if they haven't moved on to the afterlife. Naruto said sadly. He already knew who his parents were since the Hokage was quite forward with the information after the aged leader deemed him strong enough to guard the secret. Iwa and Kuma would have a conniption fight if they learned that the Yondaime Hokage has a son and a shaman to boot. I understand. Sarutobi nodded. When will you be leaving? I'll just need to return home and pack my bags. I'll be out of the village in an hour or two. Naruto declared with excitement. Then I guess all I can say is good luck and stay safe, Naruto-kun. He told the blonde who was grinning like a loon. Thanks, old man. See you in a year. Naruto double-checked his map before squinting at mist-covered island in front of him. He was on the first leg of his journey, reaching Wave Country to rent a ride to ferry him to Uzu. He spent an hour combing the shore for a boat to get him across, but all he found was an abandoned fisherman's shack without any boats to hijack. This is so not good, murmured Naruto. This was one of those few moments in time that he wished he could mold chakra so he could water walk to Wave. Oh well. Soft. The chibified GS appeared in a burst of fire as it hovered in front of its master waiting for an order. Armor OS mode. Naruto barked as his body was engulfed in fire before it dispersed to reveal Kurobina. He floated a few meters off the ground E4 flying forward at top speed, causing the waters to part as he sped to his destination. It didn't take long for him to arrive at his destination thanks to the enhanced speed Kurobina granted him. He dispersed his soft before making his way to a fisherman town indicated on the map. He was surprised though when group of bandits came out of the mist-covered trees, carrying rusted weapons and sporting bloodthirsty grins on their faces. He looked around to discover that he was surrounding, effectively cutting off any escape route he might had if he ever thought of escaping. What have we here, boys? The burly bandit exclaimed as he eyed the expensive clothes Naruto was wearing. I think we hit the jackpot. This is so not my day, murmured Naruto before addressing the man in front of him. Can I sweet talk you into letting me pass to avoid this foolishness? There's no foolishness here, Gaki. You entered our territory, then you need to pay the toll, the man said with a leer. Toll? Well, I don't mind. How much is the toll? Asked Naruto as he reached inside his poncho towards the pockets on his pants for some money. Everything you own in your life. The bandit leader grinned as he hefted the spear, preparing for an attack. I don't think that is a fair price, said Naruto with a smile. Tell you what, if you let me go then I will spare your lives. Is that all right? You have balls, kid, I'll give you that, but you are K. The bandit leader was cut short when a clawed hand gorged him from the back. What? Was all he said before he was burned to ash, revealing a man-sized soft with its claws outstretched. The bandits took a step back, their faces showing fear as their leader was easily dispatched by an unknown creature. What are you? Asked one of the bandits carrying a kunai. Naruto didn't bother to grace that with a response, but instead, gave his GS an order. Dig in. The shaman ordered with a cold look on his face. He watched the massacre happening in front of him as his GS destroyed the bandits, eating their souls before burning them to ash. Their screams of pain was music to his ears. He wasn't bothered by their deaths since these people deserved it. For him, they were scum that needs to be cleansed, and he was more than happy to take care of it. When Soph finished feasting on their souls and disposed of the empty bodies, Naruto continued his walk towards the fishing town of Wave Country. He found the place quite depressing, as if the happiness was sucked out of the place, but he didn't delve into that further since this wasn't his business. He made his way to the nearest bar to gather information. He went to the counter where a rather gruff-looking barman was cleaning an empty glass with a clean white cloth. "What do you want?" asked the barman without even looking at him, continuing to wipe the already clean glass. "A cold drink if you have it," Naruto replied, causing the barman raise his head and leveled him a look. "Aren't you a bit too young to drink, Gaki? How old are you?" 10. "I'm 12 and I didn't say alcohol. If you have cold juice or something then I'd appreciate it since I'm a bit thirsty from the walk," Naruto retorted with a smirk, which the barman returned. "Pineapple juice for you then," said barman as he filled a glass with a yellowish liquid from a pitcher. He dropped a cube of ice before serving. "Enjoy." "Thanks," Naruto said before taking a sip, liking the taste of the drink since it was fresh and sweet. "Is this the place where I can get some information?" "About what?" the barman asked nervously, his eyes suddenly shifting to the various patrons as if someone was watching him. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man's sudden change in demeanor but pushed it to the back of his mind. Again, it wasn't his business to pry in the town's current state of affairs unless it concerned him. "Do you know anyone who can rent me a boat for a short journey? I'll pay any price as long as it's reasonable." The barman's expression turned from shifty to one of surprise. He smirked before answering. You want to look for Kato in the fisherman's nest near the pier. He often takes passengers from here to the mainland and back." "Where do you plan to take the boat to, Gaki?" "Uzu," answered Naruto, causing the barman to leer. "Why do you want to get there?" "There's nothing in that island but ruins," the barman pointed out. Naruto nodded before drinking the rest of his juice. "I know, but I still want to go there since I have an interest to see the ruins up close." "You're not a grave robber, are you?" the barman asked in an accusing manner, though there was a greedy glint in his eyes that Naruto immediately noticed. "Kami no," exclaimed Naruto before deciding to stick to his fabricated story since he wasn't of a mind to announce to the world that he was an Uzumaki. "My aunt was one of the survivors of Uzu before it was destroyed. She was telling me stories about her life there and described the place. I want to see it with my two eyes before going back home to Hai no Kuni." "Ah, curiosity, huh? So I guess you're an Uzumaki then?" asked the barman in interest. Naruto shook his head in negative, faking a sigh as if he wished to be one. "Nope, I was adopted," Naruto replied with an absolutely straight, making the barman nod. "You're right on that note. Uzumakis either have red or black hair, no blondes as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, it's not my business, so don't want to pry. If you want to go to Uzu then you might want to find Kato. He usually takes some tourists to Uzu during the peak seasons for 100 ryo a trip. Since you're the only one, you might have to rent the boat and pay a larger sum for it," the barman advised. That made Naruto smile. "Thanks for the information," said Naruto as he placed a few notes of ryo on the top. "BLE, payment for the drink and an extra for the information." He nodded to the barman before making his exit. It didn't take him long to find the fisherman's nest thanks to some helpful villagers who pointed the way. A drunk lounging outside pointed him to Kato, who was quite tall and had a no-nonsense air around him. "I heard you were looking for me, Gaki," Kato said gruffly as he nursed a sake bottle on the table. "You want to rent my boat for a trip? News travels fast in these parts," Naruto said dryly. "I won't beat around the bush then. Can you take me to the ruins of Uzu?" "You alone?" Kato asked immediately, squinting his eyes at Naruto as if trying to finding something wrong with him. "Yes, and I'll pay extra to make it worth your while. Then I'll charge you 500 ryo a trip. Double the price if you want to return. Take it or leave it," Kato said gruffly, discouraging any possibilities of negotiations since business was quite slow these days. "Deal," said Naruto as he fished out the agreed amount from his pocket without bothering to play around with the price. He was well off after all and he didn't want to deprive the man of his income. "My type of customer," Kato said in approval as he pocketed the money before finishing the rest of his drink. "When do you want to leave? How long will the trip take?" Naruto asked curiously, since this was going to be his first time on a boat and he didn't know how far Uzu was from his location. Kato thought for a bit before answering. "An hour tops since the weather is good. Maybe we can leave in an hour," he asked the man and got a nod in reply. "Can we stay the night or do you want to return immediately?" Kato shrugged as if he didn't care. I don't have anything else to do for the week, so I can stay overnight or two if you wish, but you have to get the supplies for the two of us. I don't have any extra money to buy the stuff to set up camp. I don't mind. He really didn't mind, since this trip was more important than any money. He could fly back from Uzu using his soft, but he didn't want to arouse anyone's suspicion. After all, flight was an impossibility in the shinobi nations, well, except for a chosen few in Konoha anyway. Is there a shop around here that sells camping supplies and maybe some food for us? There's one next door. Tell the man there that Kato sent you. He'll give you a discount and I get a referral fee for pointing you his way. Kato said with a grin which Naruto mimicked. I'll provide our food. I hope you aren't averse to fish, Gaki. That's fine. I'm not a picky eater. I'll be back in an hour for our trip, was all Naruto said before turning to leave. He needed to buy enough supplies for a Day trip if he wanted to get the most out of his stay in his mother's homeland. As Kato predicted, the trip from Wave to Uzu took an hour. Naruto thought the money he paid the enterprising Sherman was worth it, as the man expertly navigated the natural whirlpools that protected the island home of the Uzumaki clan. Kato landed on a destroyed pier and tying his rope to the pole that jutted out of the water before making his way to Naruto, who was staring at the forest path in front of him with an indecipherable look on his face. Uzushio is half an hour walk along that path. I'll set up camp here since the weather is nice, so we don't have to worry about strong winds uprooting our tents, Kato told the distracted shaman as he placed the supplies on the sand. Kato, I'll go to Uzushio alone from here. I'll come back in 2 days, Naruto said distractedly. He could hear voices coming from the ruins, but they were whispers and couldn't make any sense out of it. You sure you don't want a guide, Gaki? Asked a worried Kato. I can manage. You don't have to worry about food either. Find some for your own and I'll take care of my meals while I check around the ruins. I'm sure that the forest have a few game I can catch if I get hungry, Naruto assured the skeptic fisherman. If you insist, Kato said with a shrug. As I said, I don't have a thing to do for the week, so take your time, Gaki. I like staying here anyway since the island has a soothing presence to it for some reason. Thanks, Kato. See you later, was all Naruto's aid before following the path to the destroyed home of his ancestors, leaving the confused fisherman behind to set up camp. Naruto stood on top of a hill overlooking the ruined village of the Uzumaki clan. The Sandaime Hokage provided him with his accounts of the downfall of the Uzumaki clan, Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri banding together to finish off the powerful clan that was renowned throughout the elemental nations for their prowess in the sealing arts. He instinctively knew that there was more to the story, but that was the extent of the Hokage's knowledge in the matter. From his perch on the hill, Naruto could see that the village itself was designed similar to the Uzumaki swirl. The streets, despite the ruined buildings, twirled inward until it stopped at the large rubble at the center of the village. According to his surrogate grandfather, the center of the village was the home of the head of the Uzumaki clan, the Uzukage, the strongest Uzumaki of the generation before the torque was passed on when the current leader steps down. Naruto didn't know how long he stood on top of the cliff as he studied the village below him. He didn't notice as his feet started moving, taking him down to the village proper. His senses tingled as the Furioku in the air crooned at him, caressing him, welcomed him. He didn't notice the various spirits materialized, making a path for him towards the center of the village. Naruto didn't notice the faces of man, woman, child as he trudged on as if in a trance. He didn't notice that none of their faces held anger or suffering, only calm acceptance and curiosity. He didn't know how long he walked, but he was broken out of his trance when he found himself in front of a ruined tower, the Uzumaki swirl still visible amongst the rubble that was once the symbol of the fabled building at the heart of the village. He wasn't prepared when an aged man with long hair wearing a samurai armor appeared. Welcome, youngster. It has been quite a while since a living Uzumaki graced this island. I welcome you back home, young Uzumaki. The apparition spoke in a calm, yet powerful, was startled by the aged spirit's greeting. How did you know? The blonde asked immediately. How did I know that you are of Uzumaki descent? How did I know that you are a shaman? How did I know that you are a descendant of the shaman king himself? The spirit asked rhetorically with some amusement. Yes. Naruto asked dumbly as the spirit laughed. You still have much to learn, young shaman. Despite being given the knowledge of your ancestors, your education is woefully incomplete. But that can be solved in time. You are starting a new path, so you will learn what you should know if you had a master to guide you. I guess you could say that, Naruto said with a nod of agreement. I take it that you will be answering my questions regarding the Uzumaki clan. While you're at it, can you tell me your name? If that is what you wish, then yes. I will answer your questions. My name is Uzumaki Genji, the Godime Uzukage. Follow me, young one, as I lead you to your destiny. The aged Uzumaki leader turned toward the ruined tower and phased through the rubble. Naruto stared at the spot before grumbling about insensitive spirits. He manifested his GS and had it move the rubble aside to reveal the first FL. Of the tower completely intact, as if an unknown force protected it. He dismissed the spirit before entering the archway and followed the narrow corridor until he found himself in a small room. The spirit of the Uzukage smiled as he gestured towards the swirl on the wall. Place a drop of your blood on the swirl to reveal the secret chamber underneath us. The Uzukage instructed Naru to comply with the specter's orders and bit his thumb to draw blood. He swiped the bloody digit on the seal, causing it to glow. A trap door appeared on the floor in the middle of the room to reveal a set of stairs leading downward, spiraling into the unknown. The Uzukage merely phased through the floor to the chamber underneath. Seeing the darkness, Naruto called soft light his way before re-entering the trap door and followed the stair as it spiraled to the catacombs below. Naruto didn't know how long he traversed the stairs, but he eventually found himself in a dimly lit chamber. He sent a mental command to his GS, resulting in the spirit's increased illumination, revealing the chamber to be a giant library containing hundreds, if not thousands of books and scrolls. He saw the spirit of the Godime Uzukage sitting on a large chair behind a relatively large desk. He beckoned for Naruto to take the seat in front of him, which the shaman complied. The specter spoke as he made himself comfortable. What you see before you is the sum of all knowledge accumulated by generations upon generations of Uzumakis since the clan's conception before the Jubi's appearance in the elemental nations. This is practically the reason why Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri attacked, hoping to acquire our clan's legacy and make it their own. However, they couldn't find anything since I ordered the clan to transfer all of it here in a hidden chamber underneath the Uzukage Tower, the walls and foundation protected by seals that made it impossible for them to tunnel through even if they discovered its existence. Genji said smugly to Naruto, who frowned. Why is the knowledge so important that it merited the destruction of the clan? Naruto asked with incredulity. Unlike other shinobi village that prized ninjutsu, genjutsu, iriojutsu, kenjutsu, and bloodline abilities, the Uzumaki clan mastered and advanced the art of fuinjutsu to a level that made them fear us. Genji informed Naruto, who listened in rapt attention. For example, the seal that holds Kyuubi inside you is considered a pittance to the real seal that was designed for holding the most powerful Biju without sacrificing the caster's life. The Yondaime, your father, was considered a seal master, but even he couldn't modify the seal to protect himself from summoning the Shinigami and taking his life as payment. Nor expected the side effect of sealing your chakra forever. The blonde groaned. Despite having accepted the fact that he couldn't become a shinobi due to his inability to mold chakra, he still hated the fact being thrown to his face. Damn, you spirits tend to gossip a lot, Naruto murmured, causing the aged specter to smirk. You, being a shaman, should know how boring the afterlife is. We spend most of our time on the mainland listening to the news and happenings in the elemental nations. You can say that not many are hidden from us, and you should know that Uzumakis are a curious bunch. Genji said with a twitch of his spectral lips. I definitely can't deny that, Naruto said with a smirk. You should. Now, young shaman, what brings you to your home soil? I doubt you're here for sightseeing. Curiosity, I guess. Naruto shrugged. I just want to see my mother's homeland and possibly converse with a spirit or two about the clan's history. It was pure luck that I found you. He paused. Or rather, how you found me. Genji nodded. You can say that your being here is destined to happen. Sooner or later, you would have eventually made your way here for one reason or another. As to your quest to learn the history of your ancestors, everything you need to know can be found in this room. It is yours to keep since you are my direct descendant. What? Naruto exclaimed in surprise. You mean to tell me that you're my, great-great-great-grandfather? That's too many greats, Gaki. Grandfather should suffice. The specter said with a pained look. You didn't think that your mother went to Konoha on a whim, did you? Your mother was requested by Uzumaki Mito, one of the princesses of the Uzumaki clan when Konoha was brought up from the ashes of Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara's battle. She was the first Jinchuriki of Kurama before your mother, my great-granddaughter, was requested to head to Konoha to become the second. She was lucky to be called away too since the war started when she left this island. Whoa, slow down, old-timer. Who is Kurama? Exclaimed Naruto since his grandfather's answers led to more questions. The Uzukage saw the helpless look causing an amused expression to appear on his face. You really should take time to talk to the Kyuubi inside you. After all, the beast knows the history of the world being the oldest of the nine-tailed beasts. To answer your question, Kyuubi is merely a title, not a name. His name is Kurama, the eldest of the nine that was the result of the Rikudo Sennin's actions of splitting the Jubi's power before sealing its body into the moon. I am so getting a headache, said Naruto as he massaged his temple. He was getting a headache from the disconnected information. It would have been bearable, but answering one question opened up for more. It was infuriating. You're not really that good in answering my questions, grandfather. If what you say is true, then everything I need to know is here for me to read and discover, correct? Yes, though I suggest that you start with shelf on my left. Everything there holds the history of our clan. There's even a few information there about shamans, but you have to comb through the records to find them. I suggest that you don't take the library with you, Sink. You couldn't use storage scrolls with your inability to use chakra, though there is a way around that if you're of a mind to hear it. That little tidbit perked Naruto up. There was a way for him to mold chakra. You mean there is a way for me to use chakra? You said that my chakra is sealed of permanently short of unsealing the Kyuubi. You can't mold your own chakra since the seal holding your Biju ensured that. However, there is no stopping you from using your tenant's chakra since it is already a combination of both physical and spiritual energy, though in a more potent form. I'm sure Kurama wouldn't mind lending you his strength if you ask for it. Oh, why in the world didn't I think of that? Naruto exclaimed in disgust for not realizing that little fact. Because why? Oh, you don't know what a Biju is capable of, nor have you really learned what chakra really is. I suggest that you take your time to comb through the records since I know you're not in a hurry. Naruto looked around and couldn't help but grimace at the number of books in the chamber. 2 days is not going to cut this. I think I'll send my guide back to Wave. I can easily leave the island Aya. Sigh enough, but I didn't want to reveal my ability of flight. You know, you shouldn't hide your abilities. Genji chided his grandson. Unlike shinobi, a shaman is the nexus between the world of the living and spirits. You should let the world know that a shaman once again roams the land when the Rikudo Sennin left this world. You're doing it again, you know. Naruto said dryly. He looked to the shelf his dead grandfather pointed out earlier before letting out a resigned sigh. I guess I better get started. Naruto spent the next 4 months in Uzushio to learn the history of his clan under the guidance of his grandfather's spirit. The library was definitely huge, a compilation of hundreds of years of history, old and new innovation on fuinjutsu, some random ninjutsu and kenjutsu techniques, and more. In regards to history, Naruto learned that the last shaman before him was the Rikudo Sennin, the mythical sage of the 6 paths who introduced chakra to the elemental nations, thus giving birth to the shinobi of today. One of the reasons why the sage was considered a god among shinobi was his shamanic abilities on top of the mythical Rinnegan that granted various powers that allowed him to defeat the penultimate harbinger of destruction, the Jubi, sealed the monster's body into a construct before throwing it into the sky, which later became the moon, while keeping the beast's chakra into himself. Before his deathbed, the sage used his Rinnegan and shamanic abilities to separate the Jubi's chakra into 9 manifestations, the Biju or the tailed beasts. He gave them personality and power, similar to how an oversoul is created. Naruto delved into the history of the Uzumaki clan with gusto. He learned of his ancestors' abilities in the sealing arts, making them one of the most powerful clans in the elemental nations. However, When the sage died, the knowledge of his shamanic techniques died with him. The gene that triggered one's Furioku also became dormant until Hao woke it up from within his body. His grandfather was kind enough to reveal to him one of the legendary items created by the sage, the Staff of Spirits, a 6-foot tool metal staff with a large ring at its head. The large ring had 6 smaller rings through it, 3 on each side of the handle. The face of the metal was covered in various markings that Naruto found similar fuinjutsu and shamanic runes. According to his clan's scrolls, the Staff of Spirits was what allowed the Sage of the Six Paths to defeat the Jubi with the help of his Rinnegan. There was no record on the actual function of the legendary staff, but the first time Naruto held it amplified his Furioku to levels that made his knees weak. He accepted his grandfather's request of using the staff in his quest to revive the shamanic tribe in the elemental nations. When the 4 months of study ended, he only had one more goal to accomplish: to finally meet with his tenant. Naruto found himself inside his mindscape after going into a trance. But unlike the sewer as he remembered it, he found himself standing on top of a large plateau. He would have found it a picturesque scene if not for the large fox with 9 tails chained to the ground in front of him. So, my container finally graced me with his presences, the Kyuubi said sarcastically. Naruto tilted his head to the side as he sensed the true emotions of the oversoul in front of him. Yes, he already surmised that the Biju was an oversoul of demigod class thanks to his ancestor. He could sense the Furioku keeping the Kyuubis manifested in the physical realm. Thought here was another energy source that reminded him of a vast ocean. Cut it out, Kurama. You don't have to act in front of me, Naruto told the Biju kindly, which shocked the Kitsune. I think I underestimated you, Naruto. You were definitely similar to father in all aspect, Kurama said mildly without the hate in his voice. Father, your ancestor, the Rikudo Sennin. Ah, I guess it stands to reason that you consider him as your parent since he created you and the rest of your brothers. Whoa, it'd be safe to say that you also sense my shamanic abilities. Correct. I was quite shocked to discover that my container is a shaman, but I couldn't say anything or make contact with you because of the nature of your father's seal. Oh, okay, that is definitely new. Can you tell me why that is? The Shiki Fuin and the Hake no Fuin Shiki ensures that I cannot make first contact. You have to meet me in person in order for us to communicate like this. As it stands, the seal already created a telepathic link between you and me, allowing us to converse without your needed to delve into your mind. Now that is an interesting function, Naruto said in interest, mentally making a note to ask the Sandaime if he had his father's notes on the 2 seals. I think you already know why I'm here. Hard not to, since I am connected to your mind, Kurama said dryly. You want to use my chakra since you can't mold your own because of the seal keeping me inside you. Naruto shrugged before taking a seat in front of the restrained Biju. To be honest, I just want to find out if it was possible. I am quite happy being a shaman, but your chakra, being a potent energy, may open up new possibilities if combined with my shamanic techniques. Kurama chuckled. You are definitely like him. He thought of the same thing when he sealed the Jubi's chakra into his body. That was how he created the Staff of Spirits, by combining Furioku and the Jubi's potent energy. You know of the legendary items? Naruto asked with some surprise. According to the Uzumaki clan history, there was no record of the Biju ever having knowledge of the sage's legendary weapons. Of course, father told us all about it before he passed away, Kurama said sadly, a lone tear escaping its eye. Naruto sighed as he sensed the powerful love Kurama had for the Sage of the Six Paths. His eyes took on a determined glint as he made up his mind. He sped through hand seals unlike the ones used by shinobi as he chanted a mantra in an ancient dialect no longer used in the elemental nations. Slowly, balls of energy materialized around Naruto as he chanted Unti. The balls of light attacked the chains that kept the giant Biju pinned to the ground. The blonde shaman ended his chant as a confused Kurama pushed himself off the ground and stretched, relishing the freedom he just gained. Why? Kurama asked, though it sounded like a demand without the malice attributed to such a request. Why what? Naruto asked in confusion. Why did you get rid of the binds? You could have easily controlled me with them on. You could use my chakra without my permission, so why did you remove it? Why did you remove the seal's function to give you complete control over my abilities? Naruto's expression transformed into one of determination that reminded the Biju of his father. I know the truth, Kurama. I will not stand by to let a creation of my ancestor be turned into a slave. Naruto declared resolutely before pointing at the collar with a large seal around the Biju's neck. The seal my father used tied your life force to mine, so there's no way for you to be free from me without both of us dying. However, I found a scroll in the Uzumaki archive containing a technique that disables a seal's function, and only a shaman can use it since it requires pure Furyoku to activate. I gave you the freedom of movement in my mind, but we are still tied together because of the Shinigami's hand in the ceiling. Kurama snorted before grinning foxily at the shaman. I guess father was right when he said that one will come in the future that would treat us with respect and free us from the hate that gripped this world. Well met, Asakura Naruto. Well met, Kurama of the Nine Tails. I guess this means we're going to be partners from now on. Partners? Kurama asked with a tilt of his head in confusion. Of course. As I said earlier, I am not treating you like a slave, nor will I allow you to control me. As it stands, the best way to describe this relationship is a partnership between two sentient beings. Naruto said with a smirk, holding out a fist towards the Biju. You intrigue me, Asakura Naruto, said Kurama as he stretched his fist to bump with Naruto's. Partners it is then until both of us kick the bucket. Naruto took a deep breath as he exited the first floor of the Uzukage Tower. It has been a week since he made a partnership with Kurama and practiced with a bit of the Biju's chakra. He couldn't do anything big with it as of yet, but vowed to study his partner's potent energy once he gets back to Konoha. Also, Naruto was now sporting a new set of clothes his grandfather gifted him. It once belonged to the sage before he died, and the blonde Jinchuriki found it to his liking. The outfit was composed of a loose-fitting white kimono that showed his lightly muscled chest and displaying the Magatama necklace tied loosely around his neck. The kimono was held firmly in place by black obi sash on his waist. The outfit was completed by a pair of loose black pants and a pair of wooden sandals. Tied on his back was a large scroll that contained the entirety of the Uzumaki archive, protected by a blood seal he copied from one of the Fuinjutsu scrolls that was now sealed inside. On his hand was the Staff of Spirits, gleaming in the sunlight. I guess this is it, Naruto told his grandfather, who was floating beside him. I promise to visit, grandfather. Take your time, Naruto. I will always be here if you need me. Are you sure you don't want me to send you to the afterlife like I did with the rest? Naruto asked his last Uzumaki spirit in Uzushio. He spent a week cleansing Uzushio and sending the smiling spirits of his departed clan to the afterlife for their eternal rest. He offered the same thing to his grandfather, who didn't accept since he considered it his duty to guard the ruins. I told you before, my grandson, I will be here till the last Uzumaki fades from this world. Genji insisted. However, promise me that you will visit from time to time. Unlike the other spirits, I am tied to this place, so I can't leave. I promise, grandfather. Farewell for now, said Naruto as he mentally called Soph and merged into his armored OS. He floated before flying off into the clouds towards the mainland. He decided to take it slow since he wanted to enjoy the sense of weightless that was associated with Kurobina. You know, this is the first time I experienced flying. You were really amazing, brat. Thank you, Kurama. How are you enjoying my senses so far? Not disconcerting, I hope. No, I find liberating since I now have access to the outside world through you. We should do this more often. If given a chance, then why not? I enjoy flying, but I can't really do so in the village. Agreed. So where are you off to now? You still have 5 more months to enjoy before going back to Konoha. I think I'll pay Kumo a visit. I read from a scroll in the archive that there's plenty of nice hot springs there. It would be good to relax for a bit before resuming my journey. You might get to meet Gyuki or Matabi there if you're lucky. The 8 and 2 Tails. They're in Kumo. When I was sealed inside Uzumaki Mito, Senju Hashirama gave the 2 to Kumo as a sign of peace. They should be there unless they moved to another village. They're also sealed, aren't they? They should be, since all Bijus are inside their containers, since they are more protected, unlike being out in the open. If I get to meet them, will they recognize me? You my. Have to flare my chakra to get their attention. Their chakra sense is not as acute as mine, so they might not be able to detect your shamanic powers. Good point. I'll think I'll land in TC. Ountry to refresh my supplies before taking the overland route to Kumo. I still want to travel by foot to experience the land, and flying kind of defeats the purpose of going into an exploration. Naruto told his tenant as he increased his speed, altering his course slightly towards Tea Country. He was out of supplies and he definitely needed some food for his journey to Lightning Country. He had enough of hunting thanks to his stay in Uzushio, and he didn't want to continue chasing his food before he could eat them. Morino Ibiki was on his way to the Anbu Information Division for his updated copy of the Bingo book. Unlike the ones from other shinobi villages, Konoha has a more extensive list of missing nin of other villagers thanks to their spy network. In most cases, the list was updated every 3 months and accurate enough down to the last detail. Grinning as he flipped the pages, checking out the new additions, until he saw something that turned his grin into a deep frown before transforming into something akin to anger. He growled a few orders to the head of the division before using Shunshin to exit the room. He needs to report this to the Hokage before it's too late. The Sandaime couldn't believe what he was reading. It was a few minutes ago that Ibiki barged into his office as if the hounds of Yami were after him. The reason for his sudden loss of composure was clutched tightly in his hands. The aged leader discovered why the most feared interrogator was raising a fuss when said interrogator showed him a page in the new edition of the Bingo book. Entry number 429. Name: Asakura Naruto, formerly Uzumaki Naruto. Alias: Konoha no Shaman. Affiliation: Konohagakure no Sato. Shinobi rank: NA under Konoha Military Protection Detail. Status: alive. Age: 12. Rank: B rank civilian. Bounty: 2 million ryo. Alive: Iwa, Kumo, Kiri 500,000. Dead: Iwa, Kumo, Kiri 1 million. Dead or alive: Otogakure. Information: noted to have the ability to converse with spirits and displays abilities and techniques without the use of chakra. Rumor has it that Asakura Naruto is capable of summoning a being of pure fire that destroyed a mob of civilians and shinobi when he was 5 years old. Advise: approach with extreme caution. Skill information: Taijutsu, NA. Genjutsu, NA. Ninjutsu, NA. Fuinjutsu, NA. Last known location: Wave Country as of 3 months ago. The Sandaime was livid. Despite the inaccuracy of the information concerning Naruto's abilities, he couldn't believe the fact that other villagers were already planning capture or kill his surrogate grandson. From the size of the bounty, it was quite obvious that these villagers were aiming to capture him, to add to their ranks or for breeding purposes. Where did Naruto's entry originate from? The Sandaime asked immediately, his mind already formulating a plan to get his surrogate grandson back to the safety of the village. According to Jiraiya-sama's spy network, the I-N formation originated from Oto before being spread to Iwa, Kiri, and Kumo. We can safely say that whoever the leader of Oto is, he or she has a vested interest in our shaman. Ibiki noted dryly, "What are we going to do, Hokage-sama? Asakura-sama needs to be informed of this and possibly assign an escort if he decides to continue on his journey." Sandaime thought about it for a bit before remembering the item Naruto gave him before leaving on his journey. He opened his drawer to pull out a rectangular tile with Naruto's name on it. Touching the item gave him a sense of direction where Naruto was. At this point in time, the boy was somewhere in the east. We can find Naruto using this tile. This is infused with his technique, allowing anyone to find him. He gave this to me, just in case he is needed by the village, the Hokage informed the awestruck Ibiki. We need to set up a tracking team to find Naruto as soon as possible. I'll mobilize an Anbu team at once, Ibiki declared and was about to leave the room but was stopped by the Hokage. No, an Anbu team is too obvious. We are not going to alert the spies in the village that we are actively searching for Naruto. That would only expose Naruto to more dangers. The Sandaime mused before an idea occurred to him. Get me Team 9. Team 9, is that guy's team? Yes. Team 9 is a tracker and as Su squad thanks to the inclusion of Hyuga Neji. They have enough firepower to protect Naruto, and you already know what our favorite shaman is capable of if push comes to shove. Ibiki chuckled, remembering the Gaki's GS. They would definitely rue the day if they decide to attack the powerful team. Don't you think we should send a more experienced team, Hokage-sama? Team 9 is only into their second month. Ibiki pointed out. I don't think so. This is guy we are talking about, and we all know how dedicated the man is to his training program, the Hokage noted with amusement. Why don't you send Kakashi along with Team 9? His Sharingan should be a big help if things come to a boil. Ibiki suggested, not content with having a taijutsu master and 3 rookie genins to handle this assignment. I agree. Please bring them here in the next 10 minutes. If Team 9 is on a mission, pull them out before assigning another genin team to take over. Hi, Hokage-sama, Ibiki said before using Shunshin to exit the room. That boy is going to be the death of me, grumbled the Hokage as he started writing a mission request to retrieve or protect his grandson. I think I'll label this as an A-rank mission. Naruto is definitely worth it. Why in the spirit's name is going on? Grumbled Naruto as he swung his staff to parry a katana from a Kumo Junin. 3 days on his journey after his brief supply run in Tea Country, he was continuously attacked from various shinobi villages. He was ambushed last night by a team of Iwa Chunins that his Soph was able to dispatch easily. This morning, a team of Odo shinobi descended on him like a pack of hungry wolves. He immediately summoned his Shikigamis to make mincemeat out of them before his GS turned them into breakfast. This was the third team to attack him, 3 Kumo Junins armed to the teeth. He shoved the katana aside before using his staff to bludgeon his opponent in the head, but was easily dodged. He jumped back just in time to avoid a ball of lightning and ducked from another sword swing from behind. Naruto growled as he released a burst of Furyoku that pushed his attackers aside. This has gone long enough, Naruto declared as he slammed the butt of his staff to the ground while channeling his Furyoku. Omnudo Mahu. Bind. The 3 Junins who were about to initiate their next assault suddenly froze in their tracks as if gripped by an invisible hand. They struggled to get out of whatever was binding them in place, using physical strength and chakra to get free to no avail. Now that you're comfortable, let's get down to answering my questions. Naruto said casually. Why are you attacking me? We're not telling you anything, tree hugger. Growled the katana-wielding Junin before grunting in pain as head of Naruto's staff hit him in the stomach. Naruto turned to the other Junin. Why is Kumo targeting me? He asked the man who was looking at him in fear. I'm not going to tell you anything. Naruto turned to the third Junin who immediately clamped his mouth shut with a resolute look on his face. Come on. Naruto screamed in exasperation before an idea occurred to him. He grinned maliciously as he eyed the 3 nervous shinobi. This would be the first time he tried this technique, but if it worked, it would be another powerful technique in his arsenal. If you won't answer me, then I guess you leave me no choice. What are you going to do? The third shinobi stuttered out, fear-lacing his voice as his determination disappeared when Naruto's grin appeared. Naruto grinned as he raised his hand into the air, palm open. Kurama. Spirit Ball mode. A ball of red energy materialized on the palm of his hand. It had the face of Kyuubi, its eyes full of menace as 9 tail-like constructs writhed behind it. Naruto raised the Staff of Spirits in front of him, parallel to the ground. Kurama into Staff of Spirits, shouted Naruto as he slammed the red ball into the staff, causing a burst of red and white energy to cover his form before it erupted into a pillar of intense energy, hiding him from everyone's view. It was a few seconds later that his form became visible, but instead of the staff in his hands, there was gigantic presence behind him, a presence that scared the shit out of the Kumo shinobi. Behind Naruto was a 20-foot-tall oversoul of the Kyuubi no Yoko, its eyes looking menacingly at the 3 shivering shinobi, its 9 tails dancing in the air. Its chakra being released into the air that pushed the enemies down as if they were suddenly covered in heavy weights. Oversoul. Kyuubi no Yoko, murmured Naruto. I will give you 3 seconds to answer my question. If you don't, then you might as well start praying, since I'm going to send you to the afterlife. The Kumo team wasn't able to answer due to the 3 different shouts that shattered the silence of the forest. Dynamic entry. Chidori. Hake Kusho. Naruto stared, dumbfounded, as Guy released a barrage of punches and kicks at one Junin while Kakashi shoved a lightning-encased hand on another Junin's heart. Another that Naruto recognized as Hyuga Neji released a powerful thrust that blew the third shinobi back to crash into a tree and knocking him unconscious. Glad that we made it in time, Asakura-sama. Naruto turned to see Tenten, the daughter of the owner of the shinobi store in Konoha, beside him with a pair of kunais out in a defensive stance. He turned to his other side to see a mini Guy in the opening stance of the Guken. A bewildered Naruto started at the three in front of him while said three were looking at the smirking Kyuubi in fear. What the fuck is happening here? The four screamed out in unison as the Kyuubi burst out in laughter. Naruto frowned after hearing from Guy and Kakashi the reason why he was being targeted by the shinobi village. Really, why in the world would they place him, a non-shinobi, in the bingo book? So you mean to tell me that Iwa, Kumo, Hiri, and Oto paid to have me hunted down to be assassinated or captured? Me, a non-shinobi is in the bingo book. Naruto confirmed with Guy and Kakashi nodding. He sighed. Great. Crazy people are after me. You were pretty strong with your shamanic abilities, Naruto-kun. Kakashi pointed out with his usual eye smile. Strong, yes, but I'm still a civilian. This has to be the first time that a civilian is placed in the bingo book. Naruto protested, unable to believe that his surrogate brother is condoning this. Your flames of youth have spread far, Asakura-sama. Yash, you should become a shinobi to spark your flames even brighter. Guy shouted at the top of his lungs, scaring the local wildlife away from their impromptu camp. Not now, Guy, Naruto said irritably, massaging his temples. Alright, why are you here? Ibiki informed Hokage-sama when he found your entry in the updated bingo book. He immediately set up a tracking and assault team to find you and bring you back to the village for your safety. Kakashi told him as he pulled out something from his vest pocket and threw it at Naruto, who caught it easily. We found you through that. Naruto opened his hand to see the tracking tile he gave to the Hokage. So Hokage Gigi want me to return to Konoha? He asked with a frown. For your safety, yes, said Kakashi as Naruto fumed. I don't think so, damn it. I still have 5 months more to enjoy and explore. I'm not going home just because some idiot cage wants my head. I can take care of myself, thank you very much. Naruto declared heatedly. Damn right he can. Kurama growled from his place behind the group. Naruto, why is the Kyuubi out and why is it not killing us at this moment? Tenten asked nervously. Due to Naruto's insistence, the S rank secret surrounding his status as a Jinchuriki was lifted since the shaman didn't want to hide the truth anymore. If they continued to hate him, then that was their problem. Thankfully, his reputation as a shaman and his many feats that resulted in Konoha's prosperity resulted in the people and his peers to understand his status instead of labeling him as the next Kyuubi. Besides, who was street UPID enough to attack a powerful shaman with a gigantic bodyguard that could burn you to ashes while being under the protection of the entire shinobi battalion? The civilians and Kyuubi haters definitely kept their mouths shut. They weren't suicidal, thank you very much. I was able to bring him out as a guardian spirit thanks to a technique only shamans can do. Naruto explained without going into detail on how he modified the seal keeping the Biju inside him. However, he cannot manifest with his full power, and I can regulate how much he would be getting every time he makes an appearance. He is correct. I currently have 2 tails of my chakra flowing through me with the rest sealed inside Naruto. Kurama told the group. And for your information, I'm a male, not an IT. My apologies, Kyuubi-sama. Tenten apologized immediately, not wanting to anger the powerful Biju. Kyuubi-sama, that has a nice ring to it, said Kurama, liking the respect the girl was giving him. Conceited fox, Naruto said playfully before addressing the bewildered Kakashi. I am going to continue my journey whether Gigi likes it or not. However, as a compromise, you are free to accompany me if you wish. What is the scope of your mission? Guy took out a scroll from his pouch and opened it. The mission parameters has 2 conditions. One is to bring Asakura-sama back to the village. However, if that doesn't work, then condition 2 will come into play. The A-rank retrieval mission will be upgraded to an S-rank escort mission to accompany Asakura-sama through UGH out his travel until his return to the village to merit this a success. Naruto whistled. Wow, Gigi definitely pulled out the stops for this one. Naruto mused before addressing the group. Alright, I have no problems taking you with me. Do you have the necessary supplies? Tenten patted the oversized storage scroll on her lap. I got it. I have enough supplies to last a week. But Hokage-sama gave me enough money to last us for a year if needed, she answered. I don't mind dishing out the money for you guys, so let's make this work. The money the Hokage gave you will only involve your supplies. I'll handle the expenses incurred for this trip in terms of lodging or entertainment. Is that clear, Crystal? Agreed Tenten, since she really didn't like bringing a large amount of money with her. Not used to being financially opulent at the moment. Really, 1,000,000 ryo can make any rookie genin nervous. Are you sure that is wise, Asakura-sama? Neji asked respectfully. Thanks to Naruto allowing Neji to talk to his father's spirit, the branch member prodigy now knows the truth of what happened when his father was killed. He no longer has the stick up his ass and was now respectful to the main branch members. He still harbored some hatred to Kumo for causing his father's death, but that was understandable. Don't worry about me, Neji. I have enough money to keep us happy for 10 years if I want to. Naruto said with a grin before it was replaced with a frown. I guess Kumo is off my travel plans then. I was planning to visit the place for an experience in their many hot springs. You plan to go to Kumo just to visit their hot springs? Kakashi asked Naruto, who nodded. He giggled perversely, causing Naruto's eyebrow to twitch in annoyance. Arrow Kakashi. Relax, Naruto-kun. I didn't mean anything by that. Kakashi placated the twitching teen. Of course you don't. So, do you guys have any suggestions for a week-long rest and relaxation? Naruto asked the two Junins, since they were a well-traveled bunch being Junins. Well, in Kakashi's case, former Anbu. Well, if you want to relax, then why don't we go to Tanzaku-gai? There should be a festival there right now, so there's plenty of fun to go around. The town also has a few hot springs for relaxation if you want to give it a try, not as opulent as the ones in Kumo but should be good enough for the group. Kakashi advised. I guess that takes care of that. Naruto agreed before looking up, noticing that it already late. Why don't we set up camp here for the night and move out in the morning? I'll leave Kyuubi out as our guard so we can have a good night's rest. Thanks, Brett, said Kurama, who was enjoying the feel of being around nature again. Welcome, Fox, said Naruto with a smile while watching Team 9 and Kakashi set up camp like a well-oiled machine. Tanzaku-gai was a fun place for Naruto. This was his first time to enjoy a festival without being mobbed by the populace. Team Guy and Kakashi accompanied him since he was out in the open and a very big target for any shinobi who planned to cash out on his bounty. However, Naruto informed them that there are plenty of spirits in the crowd who'd immediately inform him if such an attack was going to occur. Trusting his judgment, his Orts relaxed and enjoyed the festivities, especially Tenten and Lee, who took advantage of the short vacation by trying out different games and food thanks to the money Naruto gave them. It was on third day of their stay in Tanzaku-gai that Naruto finally decided to try out the hot springs. Team 9 would be with Guy on a short training exercise on the outskirts of town while Kakashi was at the casino trying his luck. Such was the case. Naruto enjoyed the silence of the male section of the hot springs until he felt a presence from the bushes that he immediately recognized. Peeping again, Godfather, Naruto asked loudly to no one in particular before a curse emanated from the bushes. A tall man with white hair and a large scroll on his back popped out of the small hidey hole along the large fence separating the male and female sections of the baths. Quiet, Gaki, I'm doing my research, said the man in annoyance as Naruto shook his head in mock resignation. Who knew that the great toad sage Jiraiya of the Sannin is a peeping pervert? Naruto mocked with an amused smile on his lips. He already met the man a year after he manifested his shamanic abilities. He was introduced as his godfather but couldn't take care of him due to his spy network all over the elemental countries. Naruto forgave the man since he understood the concept of sacrifice above everything else. I'm not a pervert, said Jiraiya in indignation. I'm a super pervert. Fine, Naruto said in a dismissive manner. Why don't you join me, godfather? It's been quite a Heil, since we saw each other, so this is a good time to catch up. Fine, said Jiraiya in resignation. He exited the male baths for a few minutes before coming back out with only a towel wrapped around his waist. He entered the warm water beside Naruto and sighed in contentment. What brings you here, Gaki? It's a bad time for you to be out and about right now. I'm not surprised that you know of my entry in the bingo book. Naruto said calmly before he realized something. You were the one who sent the information to Konoha, didn't you? Of course. I always keep an extra ear out for any information about you. Especially when you became open with your abilities as a shaman. One of my trusted spies in Kumo reported this to me and I immediately sent the information to Konoha. Why not tell Gigi directly about it? Ibiki found out first only after he got an updated bingo book before informing the Hokage. Naruto questioned with a raised eyebrow. My spies Chi openly reveal themselves to the public, Gaki. And if you think about it, you'll understand why. This got a nod of understanding from Naruto. The only way for the news to reach the old man is to send it to Anbu. This way, the information is readily available while making sure that my spies' identities are kept hidden. A wry grin appeared on the Toad Sage's face. My spies reported at the entire Konoha military is arming themselves to the teeth to protect their favorite shaman. You definitely work fast, brat. Naruto blushed. His few years of helping the shinobi connect their departed loved ones endeared him to them. He was not only a commodity, but a respected figure as well. Understood. So what have you been doing for the past couple of years? Naruto asked, Ed in curiosity after he got over his embarrassment. Sensei tasked me to track down Tsunade and bring her back to the village. I am here waiting for one of my spies to contact me regarding her location. She was here last week but moved on after the big casino event. Jiraiya told the boy before snickering. She lost again, I take it? Naruto asked rhetorically, an amused smile on his face. Tsunade's reputation as the legendary sucker overshadowed her status as the legendary medic. No bets. He was cleaned out before running out of town with the mafia right on her heels for owing them money. Jiraiya snickered before he turned serious. Will you be staying here long? I'm not sure. I'll stay for a few more days, around 2 I guess, before moving on to my next destination once I decided where. Naruto answered, if that is the case, can you come with me to find Tsunade? I have a gut feeling that your bloodline is going to be a big help in persuading her to return to the village. Oh, how so? Do you know why Tsunade left? Naruto shook his head. No I don't, but I'm sure you're going to tell me anyway. Damn right. Anyway, Tsunade left the village when her lover, Dan, and her brother, Nawaki, died during the war. She never forgave Konoha for their death and took the life of a wandering gambler, vowing never to return to the village. I was thinking maybe you could call on Dan and Nawaki's spirit to get through to her and persuade her to return. I can do that, but I need to determine where those two are. Do you know where they died? Can't you just call on them or something? Jiraiya questioned before Naruto shook his head in negative. It doesn't work that way. Some spirits roam the land. If their death were natural, they can either move on or roam the lands as they wished. This was why quite a lot of shinobi in Konoha had to take me to where their friends or relatives died in order for me to reach out to them. Harama-sama and Tobirama-sama both died in the village, so their spirits roam Konoha, protecting it even after their deaths. In Dan and Nawaki's case, their spirit should be where they died, in the battlefield if I hazard a guess. Naruto added the last part with certainty. That's not good. Dan and Nawaki died in Iwa, or more specifically, the place where they were ambushed by Iwa Anbu during the Great Third Shinobi War. Jiraiya revealed in a worried tone, making Naruto wince. Iwa they have a bounty on my head, so going there is going to be quite risky. Naruto mused before testing Jiraiya's resolve. Are you sure you want me to call those two to get through to Tsunade? As it stands, only those two can break the emotional barrier Tsunade created around her heart when they died. If nothing else, it should give her a semblance of closure and return to the village. Jiraiya told him in a determined voice. Fine, we'll leave when you know Tsunade's location. I have a feeling that this is going to turn into a wild goose chase. Naruto muttered before perking up. Hey, this is a great way to decide my next destination. I'll just enjoy our every top as we search for your wayward teammate. You're definitely correct there. I just hope this doesn't drag too long since I am way behind on my next novel. Jiraiya said with a bit of a whine. Of course. We don't want to upset your fan base now, wouldn't we? Naruto said dryly. If anything else, Kakashi will practically wring my neck for delaying such a wonderful work of art from being spread to the masses. I feel the love. Jiraiya swooned, making Naruto retch. Arrow Sennin. Naruto muttered before an idea hit him. Since we are going to be here for a while, care to help me perfect my taijutsu style? I'm still working out the kinks and I need all the help I can get for this trip since I don't want to use my shamanic abilities if I can help it. Jiraiya shrugged. Sure, why not? We can do that afterwards. I'll invite Kakashi along to train you to handle multiple opponents. Your style is good, easily low Junin level, but you're woefully inept in the experience department. Naruto nodded, not bothering to correct his godfather's assessment of his skills. Jiraiya might be a pervert of epic proportions, however, he is a Sannin, an S-rank shinobi, and a powerful sage. The two lapsed into a companionable silence as they enjoyed the brief respite from the harsh reality of shinobi life, both immersed in their respective thoughts. It was 2D. AYS later that one of Jiraiya's spies finally had a lead on Tsunade's whereabouts. According to the spy, Tsunade and his group composed of her assistant, Shizune, and pet pig, Taunton, were on their way to the land of birds for the poker tournament that would start in 2 weeks. Jiraiya was happy with the information since they had plenty of time to retrieve Dan and Naoki's spirit before joining Tsunade. It would be a pain to find her again since she was elusive and random in her destination. It was 3 days of travel that the group finally found themselves in a desolate wasteland at the edge of Iwa's border. This was the place where the Yondaime massacred the detachment of Iwa shinobi that served as the debut of his alias, the Yellow Flash. Naruto sadly watched the desolate landscape, sensing negative emotions surrounding the place like a cocoon. Despite this, he was able to pick up quite a few who were holding on to their positive energies despite the evil that surrounded them. They are here, Naruto whispered, thought he group heard him clearly. Their souls are crying out since they couldn't find a way to escape this life. Couldn't they just move on? Asked Tenten. When Naruto was introduced as a shaman, the academy included a short curriculum teaching them what they needed to know about shamans, their importance, their basic abilities, and the nature of spirits. This was considered a basic knowledge for Konoha shinobi because of Naruto's presence. Naruto shook his head as he gave Tenten a smile. They can but they couldn't. The negative energies in the area stops them from leaving. The only way for them to move on is for a shaman to cleanse the area, explained Naruto before sensing a dozen powerful signatures coming in from the east. I can do it easily but it is impossible at this moment. He turned to Jiraiya and the 2 Junins. We have a company of 12 converging on our location, due east. ETA is 5 minutes. How strong? Jiraiya said grimly. Junin level on par with Kakashi and Guy. Naruto reported after a brief silence, concentrating on the incoming signature. Can you give an ID on who they are? Asked Guy without his usual quirk, taking the fight seriously at the onset. No, I can't since I'm not familiar with the area. The spirits here won't give me any information so I can safe. Lee say that we are going to be facing some elites from Iwa. Naruto warned the group as he raised his hand. Kurama, spirit ball mode. He then placed the Biju spirit in his staff while envious, ioning the amount of chakra he wanted his partner to have. Oversoul, Kyuubi no Yoko. In a burst of light, Kurama appeared behind the group, though it was quite obvious that he was larger compared to the last time he was brought out. The Biju noticed the amount of chakra his partner gave him. 4 tails, Kit? Questioned Kurama, his tails writhing in anticipation since he could sense the tense atmosphere surrounding the group. 12 Iwa elite. Naruto answered the fox. I want you to stay with the Genins while they provide cover fire. If you think they are out of danger, come in with everything you got. We need to finish this as soon as possible before Iwa realizes our presence. I sense this as merely a scouting group instead of an attack squad. Why don't I just say an Amari to blast them out of the way or use soft to burn them to ash? Kurama asked with the Genins agreeing with him. I can't since using soft in full OS mode would alert Iwa to our presence. That is the reason why I restricted you to 4 tails, explained Naruto as he called on Soph and asked him into sword form. We don't want a war on our hands since this a retrieval mission. Understood, partner, said Kurama as the genins took a defensive position around him. Are you sure you're up to this, Naruto-kun? Asked Kakashi worriedly as he raised his headband to reveal his spin. Ning Sharingan while Guy took out his tonfa. Don't worry about me, Kakashi. If I can spar with Jiraiya for 30 minutes while he goes all out, then I can keep myself safe from Iwa elites. Naruto assured the man. He might not have been able to beat Jiraiya without his techniques, but was as sure as hell could stand up to Iwa's pride easily with minimal use of his shamanic abilities. They're here. Right on cue. 12 Iwa Junins materialized in front of them with sick grins on their faces. Well, what have we here? Said the apparent leader with a sadistic smirk on his face that placed the Konoha group on alert. Shit, they're the Rock Biter Brigade. Jiraiya cursed when he recognized the group in front of them. Damn, murmured Kakashi as he prepared himself for the worst. What are you guys talking about? Naruto asked in confusion. Sure, these guys were pretty powerful considering how potent their chakra were, but he didn't know why the 3 veterans in his group were cursing. Well, except for Guy anyways, since he was grinning. The Rock Biter Brigade is a special branch of Iwa Anbu. This branch is composed of 12 A rank level Nins trained by the Sandaime Tsuchikage as part of his bodyguards. Jiraiya explained as he assessed the situation. However, what worries me is their presence here. Are they here since they not iced our arrival, or did the Onoki send them specifically after us? That would be the former, Jiraiya of the Sannin, said the leader of the group. The Tsuchikage doesn't know that we are here and we are using his resources to track Asakura Naruto down. It's also a bonus that he happens to be the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. I don't know how he got the beast out of his seal, but we'll get the information out of him in due time. So all this is because you want me? Naruto asked incredulously. How in the world did you track us all the way out here? We have a talented sensor trailing after you since you left T country. The sensor picked up your trail from quite a distance, so you won't be able to sense his presence. We were able to determine your location when he reported your location near the border. The leader said with a triumphant smirk. I don't know why you came here, Konoha scums, but Tsuchikage-sama would be very pleased to bring home the bodies of Konoha's elites. Damn, if there is a sensor keeping track of us, then I can't reveal all my abilities. I'm sure the sensor already picked up on Kurama's chakra, but there's no helping it now. Naruto thought, cursing himself for being stupid. Thinking that they could enter Iwa without being detected. I guess this is unavoidable. Enough talk. Die, screamed the leader as the 12 elites charged at them with manic ferocity. However, Jiraiya was already speeding through hand seals before slamming his hand on the rocky ground. Doden. Swamp of the underworld. A large swamp materialized beneath the attacking group's feet, but they were able to jump out of the way before it could trap them. However, Jiraiya's plan was already a success since the swamp's reason was to force them to separate. The trio marked their respective opponents before speeding off, intent on ending this farce before it could escalate further. Kakashi saw one of the Iwa Junins away from the main group S. He attacked the person hoping that he could bring the man down before he could regroup. He engaged the man in a taijutsu fight, but the Iwa Junin was already on the defensive as they traded blows without scoring a direct hit. He ducked from a punch and used his crouching position to sweep at the man's feet. However, the Junin saw through his counter and jumped to avoid it. Kakashi, however, used the opportunity to use the momentum to bring himself to a handstand and did a twister kick that hit the man on the face, throwing him back. Damn you, Konoha scum! The Junin barked with hate as he sped through hand seals. Doden. Earth Missile Barrage. Rocks the size of a man's head shot out of the ground in front of the Iwa Junin towards Kakashi, who was already finishing up a defensive technique. He slammed his hand on the ground and released his chakra. Doden. Earth Encampment Wall. A dome of earth covered Kakashi that effectively blocked the incoming projectile. However, the Iwa Junin saw his chance as he disappeared in a burst of speed to appear on top of the wall before punching at the top of the protective half-sphere. Doden. Earth Shatter Impact. He man snarled before hitting the top of the protective dome with a Doden chakra enhanced punch, shattering it and burying Kakashi underneath the heavy rubble. The Iowa elite smirked before sensing Omething underneath, causing him to jump back just in time to avoid a hand that was about to latch onto his ankle. "Impressive, Kakashi, as expected of an A-rank shinobi," said the nameless Jun. With a smirk as he saw Kakashi phase out of the ground, panting from exertion. Already tired, he mocked the man before tensing when he heard a voice behind him. "Nope, just getting started," said the real Kakashi behind his opponent as the shadow clone dispersed. Doden. Earth Shatter Impact. The Iowa Junin screamed as he felt Kakashi's Doden-powered punch smack into his back, destroying his spine. However, his scream was cut off when Kakashi finished the man off by using the same technique to blow up the man's head. "Thanks for the technique," said Kakashi with a smile. He copied it from the man when he used his shadow clone to pretend to bring the man down while he himself used the same technique to appear behind his opponent. He looked to where the battle was raging and decided to help Naruto since he was facing 3 Junins all by himself. Despite being a Sannin, Jiraiya knew that facing 5A rank shinobi would give him a run for his money. He dodged an axe kick that shattered the rocky ground while he bit his thumb before speeding through hand seals. He slammed his bloodied hand on the ground, causing a seal matrix to appear on the floor. Kuchio's no jutsu. Jiraiya was covered in a large smoke screen before it dispersed to reveal a large toad carrying a Sasumata and an overlarge saucer as a shield. The toad sage was on top of its head, his eyes never leaving the 5 Iowa Junins below. "Jiraiya," said the toad before looking around. "Why are you picking a fight with Iowa?" "Sorry, Gameiken. They were the one who attacked us and I brought you out to help. Can you keep them occupied while blocking their jutsus while I pick them off one by one?" "I'll try, but you know how clumsy I am." Gameiken agreed as he slammed his Satsumata on the ground where the 5 Junins once stood before they dodged the incoming attack. He turned to the 3 on his left and attacked while Jiraiya took the 2 on the right. Jiraiya blocked a kick before latching on to the appendage and twirled the man around before slamming him on the ground. Rasengan. He created a ball of chakra on his hand before slamming it on the man's stomach, causing him to scream before dying. He jumped away from the corpse to avoid an oversized maze that threatened to smash his head to a pulp. "Damn you, Toad Sage!" screamed the mace-wielding Iowa Nin as he attacked again with Jiraiya easily avoiding the heavy weapon. "You know, you Iowa Nins should learn to expand your vocabulary. Since the start of this fight, I heard nothing but, 'damn you,' and 'die.' You need to be more creative," taunted Jiraiya as he continued to dodge out of the way before using his gauntleted hand to backhand the large mace before punching at the man's chest with a chakra-enhanced fist. He flipped back just in time to avoid a sweep kick from behind, grabbed the man's head and slamming it on the ground. Doden. Earth Spear. The mace-wielding man's exposed skin turned black, resulting from the activation of the defensive technique, making his skin as hard as diamonds. With his jutsu active, the Iowa Nin attacked Jiraiya, who smirked. Offensive technique that covers your body in compressed chakra, turning it to metal as hard as diamond," said Jiraiya as he swept a punch aside instead of blocking it, since the technique also enhances a person's strength when active. However, such technique has a glaring weakness. He finished before kicking the man on the chest that threw him back before speeding through hand seals. He Erd from his spot and appeared with a solid grip on the man's arms. Raiden. Depth Charge. Pure Raiden chakra enveloped Jiraiya and the transformed Iowa Nin, but the latter was screaming in pain, as electricity was easily conducted by his metallic body, electrocuting him to death. Jiraiya ended the technique and letting go of the charred corpse he was holding. He turned to see the last of his opponent shaking his head to get rid of the disorientation after being smacked on the ground. He turned his head a bit to see Gameiken down to 1 opponent, effectively blocking a dragon construct made of compressed rocks with his shield before shattering it with his Satsumata. "I guess I better end this now," Jiraiya mused when he saw Naruto being engaged by 4 Iowa shinobi while Guy Bridge down one of his 2 opponents with a lotus. He winced since that technique was quite powerful. Naruto cursed as he used his soft sword to keep his enemies at a distance. Sure, he was skilled, but there was nothing easy about facing 4 of Iowa's elite. Since he was limiting his arsenal, This was turning into one big headache for him. Afraid to fight back, mocked the leader of the group as he tried to get into Naruto's guard to destroy the team. Despite being a bit clumsy with the sword, the shaman was using it effectively to keep his distance against the four of them. How can I fight back when you bozos don't give me the time to do so? Naruto growled as he flipped back to avoid a hand that was about to latch onto his ankles. He recognized the technique since Kakashi loved to use it on him during their many spars. He righted himself and plunged his sword to the ground while releasing a burst of Furyoku, causing the blade to release a burst of flame that incinerated the ground while creating a ring of defensive fire around him, keeping his attackers at bay. They heard a scream as the underground Junin phased out of the rocky floor with his hands charred beyond recognition. So this is the extent of the shaman of Konoha. How sad. The leader mocked again, making Naruto twitch from behind his flame barrier. You're nothing but a fucking coward. Naruto growled. He really hated being called a coward. He survived Konoha mobs and lived to tell the tale, damn it. No one calls me a coward. Naruto roared as a pillar of white energy surrounded him. The soft sword dematerialized before reforming into its true form, looming behind Naruto as it leveled an intense glare at the now fearful Iwa Nins. You want me to fight back? Then let me accommodate your request. Spirit of Fire, Armor Oversoul, Kurobina. Jiraiya cursed loudly when he saw Naruto bring out Soph. He jumped onto Gameiken's head and beckoned for the large toad to converge on the Genin's location. What is happening, Jiraiya? Gameiken asked nervously as it stood beside the Kyuubi without a hint of fear. Naruto was kind enough to explain to the Toad Sage about the Kyuubi being his oversoul, who in turn relayed it to the toads through the elders. Naruto is pissed. If he is doing what I think he's doing, then we need to make sure that the Genins are protected. What do you think he's going to do? He is going to use one of his most powerful techniques, Jiraiya said with a smirk. The Rock Biter Brigade won't know what hit them. This is going to be a blast, Kurama quipped as he eyed the battle hungrily. Kakashi heard Naruto shout his technique, making him curse. He immediately grabbed Guy before sprinting back to their original location in between the Kyuubi and Gameiken. What are you doing, Kakashi? We need to help, Asakura-sama. Guy protested as he tried to remove Kakashi's iron grip from his shoulder. Trust me, Guy, you don't want to be within range of Naruto with what he is about to do, Kakashi told his fellow Junin. What do you mean? Guy asked in confusion as he watched the soft transform around Naruto, forming an armor before the boy floated off the ground. Well, you keep talking about flames of youth. Well, you're going to see firsthand how powerful Naruto's flames can be. Naruto growled. Diaz glared at the group in front of him with hatred in his eyes. In a burst of speed, he flew down with his armor claws outstretched. One of the Junins wasn't fast enough to dodge as he got skewered on the stomach before being burned to ash. He didn't bother turning as one of his clawed hands casually swatted aside a large earth spear before using the same hand to launch a fireball at the group. The leader flipped through hand seals before slamming his hand on the ground. Doden. Earth wall. A large wall of compressed earth intercepted the fireball, causing a large explosion that destroyed the construct easily but didn't pack enough power to damage the Junins who cowered behind it. Enough, Naruto shouted as he flew above the group as the two pillars on his back extended before placing itself on his shoulder, the tips glowing a menacing red as his Furyoku charged for his next attack. Anabi. Twin beams of intense heat and spirit energy fired off from the tips of the pillars at great speed before impacting the area where the Iwa Nins were. The attack was so powerful that it caused a large shockwave that spread over a large area while shaking the earth. The deuce. Tea and debris kicked up by the impact dispersed to reveal a large crater easily 30 feet deep and 100 meters wide. Naruto growled when he saw the leader of the Rock Biter Brigade phase out the ground 100 meters away from the crater. From the looks of it, the leader abandoned his team to survive. He flew down within earshot of the escapee, leaving your team to die. You're lower than scum, Naruto growled hatefully. Ha, survival of the fittest, brat. The strong lives while the weak dies. The Junin spat, though his bravado was marred by the fearful look in his eyes. Then you're not fit to live. Coward. Die. said Naruto as he sped towards the Junin at top speed and sliced the man into 3 pieces using his claws. He turned around before releasing a fireball that burned the remains of the leader of the group to ashes. You're right, the weak dies and you're weak. You brought me out and didn't even let me fight, whined Kurama as the group had a small meeting after the battle. The Genins were in awe at Naruto, who displayed power that none of them could ever hope to attain. Tenten was practically raping Naruto's armored form with her eyes when he approached the group with Kurobina still active. I brought you out to protect, not to fight. Naruto snapped, still irritated for being called a coward. What got your panties in a twist? Shut it you. Well, asked Kurama, not giving in. Fine. The leader called me a coward. Naruto spat in absolute hate. Ah, that explains it. Kurama nodded as if that explained everything. Jiraiya joined the group after he and Guy tied up the survivors while disposing the corpses. Good work, Gaki. A bit excessive but good work all the same. Jiraiya praised his godson. Thanks, godfather, said Naruto as he undid Kurobina before looking at Kurama. I'm going to return you to the seal. With the amount of power I used for Onabi, I'm sure Iwa knows of our presence now. Kurama nodded before Naruto cancelled the oversoul. The Kyuubi disappeared to be replaced by a staff which Naruto easily caught when it started to fall. He pulled out 2 small Uden grave markers with Nawaki and Dan's name when he asked for them from Jiraiya. I'm going to start cleansing the land and ask for Nawaki and Dan's spirit to travel with us. Naruto told the group, make sure that we are ready to depart immediately when I'm done. You decide what to do with the prisoners. With that, Naruto walked away towards the area where he sensed 2 strong sources of positive emotions. If those weren't his target, then he would have to search. Are you sure he'll be alright alone? Asked Tenten worriedly as he watched Naruto walk into the barren wasteland. He'll be fine. Besides, I don't think it is a good idea for us to venture into the barrens right now. Jiraiya told the girl, who looked at him in surprise. Why? There's nothing but rocks out there. Besides, what if there are more Iwa nins hiding in those rocks? He might need our help. Relax, Tenten. Guy assured his charge. Jiraiya-sama is right. The place where he is going is not for us. Can you explain this to us, Guy-sensei? Asked Lee. You see, there is a reason why this area is a barren wasteland. Guy began his tale. The area where we are right now is the boundary of a place now dubbed as the Wasteland of Lost Souls. According to rumors, the place is inhabited by the vengeful spirits killed by Yondaime-sama when he saved a detachment of Konoha shinobi from an ambush, thus giving him the alias Yellow Flash. Jiraiya nodded seriously. Guy is right. Anyone who enters the place goes insane. Jiraiya told the Genins, who looked at him in shock. Why do you think this place is still a wasteland despite being a great spot for a trading town or a settlement? The vengeful spirits in the area torments those who ventures into their territory. Various priests tried to exorcise the spirits or calm them to no avail. Kakashi picked up the narrative. Until now, that is, Naruto is the only shaman that can use techniques to bring those vengeful souls to rest. If we go with him right now, he'd be hard-pressed to protect us while getting rid of them. That is why we should stay here and wait. Besides, with the power he showed us earlier, do you think anyone can stand up to him, especially when he's in a bad mood? That reminds me, why is Naruto-kun so angry when the Iwa nin called him a coward? Kyuubi seems to know the reason since he accepted it immediately. Guy mused before turning to a sad Kakashi. Do you know the story behind that, my rival? It's not my secret to tell, Guy. That is a sensitive topic and only Naruto can tell you that. Kakashi said sadly. Alright, let's get things ready. We are going to get out of here as soon as Naruto is done with his mission. Naruto couldn't help but be amazed at the number of vengeful spirits in the area. These were not your ordinary souls, these were empowered souls hell-bent on destroying the living. He immediately brought out Soph and order his GS to start devouring those with negative emotions. He could practically sense the glee from his GS when he sent that order through their mental link. While Soph was stuffing his face full of souls, Naruto was concentrating on the faint energies he was looking for. Annoyed that this was taking so long, he raised a hand to his chest while forming his hand into a sign to ward off evil. He started to chant as a glow of pure Furioku swirled around him, picking up speed until he spoke the last sentence of the mantra for banishing the negative souls to the afterlife. Omnudo Mahu. Spirit destruction. The Furioku around him stopped moving before moving outward. Any vengeful soul it passed through were sent to the afterlife, their wail of anger echoing before disappearing into the unknown. The spell continued to spiral outwards until the last soul was cleansed before canceling the spell. He sighed in relief since the spell took a lot of spiritual energy to pull off. Despite his Furioku levels, the spell was a high level 1 and only powerful shamans could perform it. Naruto found himself surrounded by the smiling souls of Konoha shinobi. He returned their smile before deciding to get this over and done with. Dan Katu and Senju Nawaki, please come forward. The aforementioned spirits came out of the group, standing before Naruto with questioning looks on their faces. I am currently on a mission. I need you two to help Tsunade get over her grief and persuade her to return to Konoha. Naruto told the spirits. Ne-chan deserted Konoha? Nawaki asked in surprise. Seems like it. I didn't know that our deaths affected her so much. Dan said with a thoughtful frown on his face. Shaman-sama, could you take us to her? That is the reason why I'm here. I wanted to ask you first since I don't like to force spirits to do my bidding. Naruto told the duo who grinned. Well, you have our permission. Please take us to Ne-chan so I can smack some sense into her. Nawaki exclaimed. His fist rose in determination. Dan chuckled. You're going to do a lot more than smacking to get Tsunade to change her mind. He is quite bullheaded, you know. Dan said in amusement. Oh, don't worry. I know how to push her buttons. Nawaki said in glee before turning to Naruto, who was looking at the two with mild amusement. Nay, Shaman-sama, how are you going to take us to her? Naruto pulled out the two small tablets he fashioned earlier with their names on it. I'll use a technique to bind your souls into these tablets. I will release you and give you temporary bodies once we find Tsunade. I hope you don't mind. We don't mind, Shaman-sama, and thank you, said Dan with a smile. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's go, exclaimed Nawaki before he was conked on the head by Dan. Ow, what did you do that for? Please have a little respect for Shaman-sama, Nawaki-kun. Dan chided the boy. Fine. Nawaki pouted before looking at Naruto with a grin. Can you take us to Ne-chan now, Shaman-sama? I have no problems with that, said Naruto as he raised his hand and channeled a bit of Furioku. Dan Katu, Senju Nawaki, spirit ball mode. As if on command, the two spirits shrunk into balls with their faces and hairstyle on it. They floated over to Naruto's outstretched ND before being guided over their respective tablets. Hioi Gatai. The two entered the tablets, which glowed a bit before returning to normal. Naruto sighed before turning his attention to the OT. Her spirits as he tucked the tablets into his sash. Do you want me to send you all to the afterlife? He asked the spirits, who nodded eagerly, wanting to move on to the next great adventure. To be continued. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.